That's an arbitrary countdown. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, it says we're live. We've gone live. Let me make sure I get this all straightened out. Yep, there it is. We're live on the YouTubes for the March 2025 Westlake Charter School board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the YouTubes.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, comments can be made both in person or via email to admin@westlakecharter.com. If you are sending a comment in via email, please limit it to 250 words. Every effort will be made to read your comment into the record, but some comments may not be read due to time limitations. Comments received after an agenda item will be made part of the record if received prior to the end of the meeting. With that, Amy, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Hope.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Josh.
Here.
Satvir. Sally.
Here.
Amber.
Here.
Suzanne.
Here.
Nurali. And Amy.
Great, thank you. Celebrations.
Who picked me?
Oh,
Josh.
Josh Carell.
I would like to celebrate a member of the Westlake staff, our current coordinator of special education, who is now the Disability Advisory Commissioner for District 3 and Karina Talamontes. And if you guys don't know, that is Miss Ashley Patel.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. Love it. Love seeing her being a part of that position.
Suzanne?
I want to celebrate the girls soccer team. They have been off to a great start and done amazing, and it's super fun to see them out there playing and tearing it up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, let's go girls soccer.
Killed them.
It's funny how that works. Though freezing, I like to joke. I'm going to do a personal celebration. My daughter's home from Iowa, and I've been teasing her that she brought the weather with her, when she then reminds me that this is beautiful and spring-like, and she's happy in her short and t-shirts, so there's that. But my real celebration is that we found out yesterday, so I'm looking at Steve because I texted him, yesterday, that she has received a fellowship and has been accepted to a school in Greece, and she will be studying there this summer. So, and I was at Epcot, and I ran into Nancy Kong Vasquez,
Oh,
the
that's
former board
great.
member.
Of course you did.
Of course you did.
So we made a joke about the fact that we had all these explorers exploring the world, and it's always nice that, so whether it's former students or board members, we all just keep exploring.
Our place in the global world. I love it. I've got a pre-planned celebration. It involves a slide and a video and a challenge for all of you, and I'm just gonna use it. The Fly With Me in Zero G campaign is a campaign where educators are applying to have the honor and the opportunity to fly in zero G. The plane goes up, and then the plane drops down real quick, and you're floating in zero G. And part of this application process, which is being undertaken by our very own Domina Stamus, is making a video. So we're gonna all watch this video, and whoever's watching on the YouTubes, if you could scan this QR code or use this bit link, and I encourage all of you to do the same, I would like you to watch the video, and Domina would like us to log into the YouTube and make a prediction of what you think the bubbles will be like in zero gravity. Let's see what she's talking about, and then we'll thumbs up it.
Hey Emily, I'm Domina Stamus, a high school physics and astronomy teacher, and I want to take my students' curiosity to zero G. Imagine 1,500 Westlake Charter students, 16,000 district students, and thousands of alumni nationwide all witnessing how matter behaves in free fall. My students want to know how gas bubbles interact with a fluid in weightlessness. Once in free fall, I'll pop a water balloon, creating a really cool floating water sphere. Then I'm going to add an Alka-Seltzer tablet. On Earth, the bubbles rise, but in zero gravity, where will the gas go? Will the reaction change? Will my students' predictions be correct? It isn't just a cool experiment, it's a hands-on lesson on gas formation, fluid dynamics, and chemistry that will make science real for thousands of students. I have been a space exploration educator for 14 years. I founded our Space Club and Astronomy course here at Westlake Charter High, where we tackle NASA challenges like designing IV fluid administration in space, engineering Martian habitats, and creating astronaut-ready meals. I even got the opportunity to fly aboard the NASA SOFIA telescope in the stratosphere, where I brought the science of infrared imaging back to my students. Now, I'm ready to tackle it one step further by bringing zero gravity into my classroom and the entire Westlake Charter community. Emily, this opportunity is about inspiring the next generation of space explorers. So let's partner up, take science out of the textbooks and into zero gravity, one floating water bubble at a time.
Let's give it up for our physics teacher, Domina Stamus. Now, what she wants you to do is she wants you to watch that video. Then she wants you to
Empower your students to be more authentic and
Thank you, YouTube. Click the little thumbs up button. Oh, I gotta go back to her video now. Clickety click, pausey pause. Click the thumbs up because the more thumbs ups we get, the more likely it is that she gets selected to be the next space traveler. And then she wants us to add a comment on what you think the bubbles are gonna do when she puts the Alka-Seltzer tablet in the water. What do you guys think's gonna happen?
Oh, God.
Typically the bubbles go up, but there's 0G. What's gonna happen to the bubbles in this water
The
thing?
Alka-Seltzer water.
Yeah, I think that it is. I think that the bubbles are going to shoot out in about a million directions,
Oh, okay.
which will be fun to watch. All right, so that's it. I made my comment. I would encourage all of you on the YouTubes to make a comment and to leave a thumbs up, and that will help Domina make it to space. We got 98 viewers in the last 18 hours, but we just launched this thing, so please do accordingly. Do that, and you'll be helping Domina get to space. There is the QR code right there, and there is the link as well. So if you want to help our teacher astronaut get to 0G, you can scan that right now. Or go to the YouTubes and scan it there. All right. Love that. Amy Wells, what are you celebrating, ma'am?
I'm gonna sneak in two.
Oh, two. You got two
Two,
celebrations.
it's a twofer.
All right.
I think I can celebrate this one. Yes, I can. We have 10 of our high school seniors. Emily Batten told me this week. 10 of our high school seniors got accepted to UC Davis.
Yeah, we got big Davis acceptances last
Isn't
week.
that
Yeah.
cool?
Yeah,
I
you-
just can't stand
The
it.
UCs are just coming back,
Yeah.
and we got Davis. We got some San Diego. It's
I don't know
pretty.
about
It's
any
pretty
others,
exciting.
But I was just super excited. That was the first one.
We got 5 just on Friday at Davis. It was very
The
exciting.
other one comes with a gift. So Domina was talking, or in her presentation was the high school space explorers, where they create a meal ready for astronauts. I was given the opportunity to judge this year's competition. I brought you all copies of the recipe because it was so very good.
Oh, that's
It
great.
was really cool. So the kids were all given the one item. Every meal has to include this one item, and the kids had to create a recipe, create a dish around this one item, and it was pasta, and it had to meet certain requirements. It couldn't have sodium in it because in space they can't have sodium. It has to be extra spicy because they lose their sense of taste, and it had to be these nutritional values. And so the kids had to do a lot of work around this recipe, and we all got to taste it and try it, and then we ranked it, and then that all goes to Houston. And if they are in the top whatever, they get to go to Houston and present this. And so I'm really hoping they get to go. But the recipe, they gave us copies of it. It was really good. It was really good.
Thanks for the recipe book.
You're
I love it. I love
I
it.
came with gifts tonight. My celebration wins.
Amber Houston, what are you celebrating over there?
Sure, I want to celebrate the second grade difference makers, also like previously known as the Living Wax Museum.
That's right.
And this was my 5th child to do it, which was my last, right? So it was really fun. So I watched her, but then also watched the over 100 other students. And it's hard, right? Like speaking in front of people sometimes when you're not comfortable with that is a challenge. And I'm just so proud of them. It was really fun.
So
Just
good.
yesterday.
So good.
I want to celebrate the Missoula Theater production. Oh, my God. It was
so
so
good.
fun. Like, you watch kids from kindergarten through 8th grade, and you just smile the whole
time.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I got to catch one of the rehearsals. Super cool.
I will celebrate the esports Smash Brothers team who
Let's go.
Won their game today.
Yeah.
So, yay.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We've expanded esports, and they're doing well. They're doing well. Steve?
Celebrate the CCSA conference that was this week. I got to go down there with some members of this team and some other staff got to go down there as well and got to meet some previous board members who happened to be there. Joe Clark and Jed Wallace were down there.
True story.
Some other charter leaders, quite a few other charter leaders were down there. So it's great to network with some, previous folks and see all the things that CCSA is up to.
Love it.
Great. Any board comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? Then we'll start with Ms. Cahigas while John checks the email.
There is no one here for public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keegan. And there are no public comments in the admin@westlakecharter.com email.
Perfect. That brings us to our first report. Felix, the WAVE report.
There we go.
It's good to be back here with y'all. I apologize for missing last month. My celebration is that we had like 30 people show up for a coffee talk last month, and so I've been joking that I think the 11th core value of Westlake is competition. As soon as you say that donuts are in order, people want to come out for it. Yeah, I figured for today, what I'll do is kind of give you an update of what priorities are for the month of March, and kind of what we're looking for in the last quarter, basically, of the work that we have ahead of us with WAVE. Just to remind you, kind of my priorities for WAVE this year were kind of to reset some of our operational effectiveness, kind of build that, reset our foundation with that in regards to kind of what we work on our budget and what we work in kind of our programs and events. The second was really to focus on improving the parent engagement in both quantity and quality, kind of really focusing on the volunteer experience and what that feels like. I feel like we've been doing fairly well on making sure that there's a redefined culture and clarity rolls around the organization and kind of what we're looking for. We'll talk a little bit what that looks like going into next year. We have a goal of reaching 5,000 parent volunteer hours. We're about 32%, lower than I expect it to be. I'm hoping that this is just a logging issue and not necessarily a true representation we're at based on what we've seen so far. But when I had a goal of 75 unduplicated families volunteering, we're already at 115, inching towards 130. And so we're getting new and more families involved at this point. And so I think there's a room for us to grow and get a little bit better, but there's a trajectory that looks pretty positive in regards to kind of where we see everything going. Yeah, January and February and December as the first time WAVE president, like it's a pretty calm time, which I appreciate after, August, September, October. But we're about to ramp up again, speaking with the International Festival coming up around the corner. So kind of what I've been working on at this point is one, developing a 25-26 WAVE budget, so getting that kind of on the books and what we want to see going out so that this board is prepared to what we're going to see next year, and then the incoming board, if we have changes or anyone else is going to lead, would actually know kind of what the vision and the plan was. Collaborating right now with our VP of Parent Participation. If you didn't know, Whitney Browning is our new VP of Parent Participation as of January. We are looking kind of like what staff appreciation is going to look like in the month of May. There's some awesome ideas last year that we want to repeat. There's some new ideas that have come back as well as with feedback. And then I've been collaborating with Dr. Ike on both classroom engagement and fundraising priorities for next year. And so there's some really, I think, interesting conversations of how to get parents back into the classroom, as well as kind of where WAVE could put its effort into helping support the school and its priorities. The big ones, though, are prepping for International Festival. So that's on April 5th, if you don't know already, 2 to 5 p.m. We have almost 20 booths, which is our goal for cultural booths to be set up. We have Mrs. Montez, Sandra Yan, and Whitney Browning kind of heading it this year. It looks to be really good. We're ahead of schedule from what was planned, I think, the year before, which I'm grateful for. So if you haven't marked in your calendars already, April 5th, we'll get everyone inside there and we can be able to have a good time. We're probably expecting anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 people. Last year for Fall Festival, we had 700. I keep on being told that this is a bigger thing than Fall Festival, so I'm getting prepped for it at this point. On a side note, just putting it out there, if the board is interested at all in some visibility or kind of approachability opportunities, we're actually going to have a WAVE booth. So parents can understand what WAVE is doing. If the board is interested in having your own booth, and just kind of saying, hey, we're the board, we're doing things, you want to know what we're working on, how to show up to their meetings, like happy to entertain the idea if y'all are interested in it at all. Love it. And then WAVE elections are on April 28th, 2025. I've been promoting April 20th and realizing we're closed on that day, and it's right after spring break, so we're going to push it back a week. we're going to start putting in position descriptions next week on the Facebook group, as well as through emails for folks that are interested. We have some folks who have already reached out to me and said, hey, couldn't do it this year, but this might be interesting for next year, so I'm excited for that. We're going to bring on, I think, 3 advisory positions to the board with comms, IT, and a secondary parent participation position. We're basically looking at restructuring K through 5, 6 through 8, and then high school 9 through 12, and kind of what that looks like. So I think we found that we've had kind of the equal treatment of parent participation around all grade levels, and we're realizing through the feedback from our parents that there needs to be specific approaches to each of those kind of grade levels themselves. But yeah, so I think, for me, my rest and break is over. It's going to get busy, kind of all over the place, but hopefully we can have you all involved, or at least have some visibility to the board in whatever ways feel right to y'all. Any questions or things I can answer for you?
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Charter Impact did not meet this month, so I will skip that report. Development didn't meet either, right?
We meet Monday.
We meet this coming Monday, so
So
unless
be ready.
Be ready.
Be ready.
Okay, which then means finance for Sean.
Finance did meet, and our entire agenda is on tonight's agenda. So it's the second interim budget and certificated compensation. So I don't think I really need to say anything else because it's already on for tonight.
Yeah, and then with governance, we didn't meet tonight, so no report at this point, which means we're up to you, Dr. Ike.
You guys saved me all that time. I will use that time. No problem. I will fill that time. Well, I wanted to play a little guessing game of how many slides do you think I have tonight. It was a fun little game. Everybody write down a number right now in your mind. And when we get to slide 93, you'll know how you did. Okay, I do have a report for tonight. I'll start with some celebrations. We'll do some strategic actions and some updates. Then we have first interim slides, we have comp slides, and we have academic report tonight. So, I've got the wrong year on the board meeting slide right there, Steve. It's funny because I made fun of you because you had the wrong year on yours. I didn't update mine. Okay, well, it is actually March of 2025. I'd love to celebrate the 8th grade spoken word. Always just lights up the 8th grade, beginning of the 8th grade spring season. You kind of start with this and you're rolling through all these amazing, really team building style activities for 8th grade until they get to the Santa Cruz overnight trip and then promote. This season is great, and it really launches with this fantastic PBL, which is spoken word. It was celebrated tonight. The Missoula Children's Theater came through town. They did Hansel and Gretel, and they were fantastic. We had a wonderful K-12 conference week. Each campus had its own flavor and its own feel. I mean, high school's got a different feel than the K-8. In fact, like you said, the K-5 has a little different feel than the 6-8, but all the way through and through, happy faces, happy parents. Great to have parents and teachers and student-led conferences all the way through. Talent show, if we haven't celebrated that, was a packed house and an absolute gas. With teacher dance, crushed it. We had our principal up there doing ballet. There's just all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But it was a delightful night. And we had the SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test. Yesterday, not today, right? Today's Thursday. Yeah, it was yesterday. And so it was fascinating to have a conversation with a couple of kids afterwards. You're like, hey, how'd it go? I had 40 extra minutes. Okay, good to hear. I ran out of time. So, really honored that we have the opportunity to host that on campus during the school day to ensure accessibility for all of our students. Big shout out to the admin team for orchestrating that at the high school campus and all the students who participated in that right there. As we know, the SAT is no longer a requirement for many of your college applications. To sort of see so many kids come out and say, well, I'm going to take the SAT anyway, even if it's not a requirement. I love that Explorer vibe. 8th grade Shadow Day at the high school was awesome. In fact, if you're going to visit the high school one day, if you're just kind of want to see what the high school looks like, you should come on this day next year because it is so fun to watch these big-eyed 8th graders. They're walking going oh, wow, this is kind of cool. And our Link Crew leaders were just on point. Those high school leaders showing the 8th graders around and hear what the Link Crew leaders are saying about your school that you built is just It is an absolute joy to hear them talking student to student, because on parent tour night, the Link crew leader is very aware that they are talking to parents. But on 8th grade shadow day, they are talking to like younger peers, and it is a vibe. It is so great. So yeah, shadow day was fantastic. We celebrated this tonight, the Difference Makers Showcase, where the Living Wax Museum comes to life as each 2nd grade student studies a difference maker, and then does it. Who are you pointing out? Go ahead. Oh yeah, is she in there?
Right in the center.
Oh yeah, she's right there. Yeah, great. Who was she? Who's she do?
She was Marie Curie.
Marie Curie, very cool. Do you know who the girl is on the very end with the long nails and the gold medals from the Olympics? Do you know the name of that runner?
Yes. Oh, she carried.
I couldn't remember her name. He just got me on that one today. She says, "You know who this is?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know the runner's name, but I recognize the long nails." Exactly. But I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
I'm so old, I can only think of FloJo.
Yeah.
FloJo.
The students do a great job. The teachers do a phenomenal job. I mean, really, as a 2nd grader, remember, you're just starting to learn what is a research. How do you do research? How do you curate evidence and then put it in such a way that I can communicate that evidence to another person? Plus, you have the speaking and listening standards of speaking to crowds of people. It is just really a fantastic unit. But I think maybe the highlight of the unit is that so many parents step on campus. So here, if you've never been on this campus, you come in for this, and it's really a highlight. There's me standing on stage in this room right here doing the K-12 lottery, and I'll talk about that tonight, but went off without a hitch, and it was well attended, a great room, and lots of very excited people. At one point, these 3 8th grade girls were in the room, and they all knew each other. And then the results started coming in, and then this one screamed, and they all ran over to her, and then this one screamed, and all 3 of them got in. And it was the wildest deal. Somebody was taking a video. It was cool to see, because we've seen the parent feel excited when their kid gets in. We've seen the kindergarten dad or mom, but to see teenagers all celebrating with one another, because all 3 of these good friends all got in. It was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And then, of course, we're doing some recruitment right now. It is that season, and we're out at the SAC State Career Fair, and actually got a couple of. We have an interview next week for one of the candidates that we met on that day, so it was well worth the recruitment tour. So. Super exciting stuff. We'll do some strategic actions, and then we'll do some updates. I think the first one up is that we demonstrate what's possible in school and the community collaborate. Sometimes the strategic action is strategic because it's part of the strategic plan. Sometimes the strategic action is thrust upon us. Right? Is that right? So like, we're managing this road closure over here at the high school, right? If you recognize, this big archway in West Entrance was going to be torn down. And luckily, they let us know with like a week's notice. And they didn't even have to let us know, so I'm glad they did, because all of our students park right here on that street. So we're going to lose our student parking, and all of our parents often pick up and drop up Rutrow. So we've got all these students who want to come to our school, and we had to pivot. And so we worked with a heroic wholesale store next door to ensure that their parking stalls were unaffected. We worked with the mattress distribution center next door to borrow 50 of their parking stalls here, which they're super gracious and let us do. Then we worked with the county offices, the people who are right up over here, to communicate with them. Hey, I know some of you guys park here sometimes, but please don't, because we're going to. And actually, it went off without a hitch. The high school team really doubled down on communications. They put flyers on students' cars. They handed out flyers to people who park in this parking space. They sent home emails to families. They put out signage and sandwich boards. It was well done, and it went off very smoothly, and it proved that, like, hey, if we work together, we can manage the situation. So the next situation is our ongoing lease with this building, and part of that lease conversation is like, hey, could you quit taking Heroic's parking spots? So we've kind of put together a proposal. You can see like a proposal about like a video camera here where we can monitor spots. But we're forging some really strong relationships now with our partners at the county, at the Heroic Wholesale, and the mattress distribution center next door. We produced a proposal to mitigate the parking issues, to monitor the parking lot, and to create kind of an accountability through improved communications. Hey, if you see someone parked in one of your spots, you just text us. We'll look on the video monitor. If we see that it's Hope Golick, we'll be like, hey, Hope, could you go move your car? So it's been well received by the heroic ownership, by Natomas Unified School District. Just got an email today from them. They were very excited about it. And by the Buzz Oates ownership company. So what started off as kind of mitigating we have a construction issue, has led to like improved partnership, which is actually going to impact our ability to re-engage in that lease negotiation and some improved relationship there. And maybe even some possibility at future collaboration in other ways regarding parking and things like that. So just want to kind of bring that to your attention. If you hadn't heard about it, those are some things that we've been working on over at the high school during this time. This is the season where we kind of really focus on goal area 1, objective 1 from the strat plan, which is recruit, develop, and retain the highest quality staff. And this is that moment where we go, hey, how are we doing on recruitment? How are we doing on retention? And all year we've been working on development. So, what are we doing? We're at career fairs, we're on social media, we're having EdJoin postings. Visibility at conferences matters. Sally Hubbard is going to be at a conference in San Diego next month, soon, April, right? And every time we put someone on stage with a logo like this, I mean, you were at CCSA this week, so was I. We're walking around. It is an opportunity to show how much we love this place, and those are recruitment efforts for sure. On the development side, obviously, you have multifaceted professional development plan that we talk about all the time, so I won't bore you with that. But, 6-week check-ins with admin, collaboration, shared leadership, our committee work, all of that is part of like developing our staff. And then retention, really purposeful investment in a culture of support. When I go to these intent to return meetings, I hear a lot of teachers, both new and veterans, saying, well, I feel supported. I feel like I get what I need when I need it. That's a big retention piece for us. But another piece is, the finance team is updating the salary proposal that you're looking at tonight. And we think that really values retention and longevity, the way that proposal is built. So I like that piece as well. One quick little strategic update is all of the goals that you approved the month before last are now updated on our board of directors landing page, where you click on board goals. Over here on that page, all of the goals are now updated. And tonight's academic report, I'm referencing them, so I just wanted to remind you that we set 2025 goals, and they're on the goals page. Before I go on to updates, any questions on negotiations on the lease, parking lot, recruitment, retention, development, or goals? Super duper. It's more fun if you talk. Just putting that out there. Just putting that on you. I want to talk about WASC updates, because this is a big season for us, right? We've been renewing our WASC accreditation each year since freshman year, because that's what you get. When you open the new school, you get the freshman year, and then you file and say, hey, now we're sophomores, we're juniors. But now that we're seniors, we're doing our full WASC self-study, and I want to kind of give you the timeline of where we are, because this season matters big time. So our self-study report is what we've been working on in this season right now. We're buttoning it up, finalizing it up, to really orchestrate that chapter 3, that self-study. Board members were all invited. If you wanted to be on a focus group, more than one of you did participate in a focus group. So when I get you the document, you can kind of look through and see input from all of the stakeholders. And I'll be getting you that document right after we submit it here on the 24th. So we're going to submit that there. Our visitation is a 3-day visitation. We'd love to have you be part of it. So I know everybody's got work schedules and things, but as we approach our WASC visitation, it'd be nice to have some board leadership, especially on that Sunday when WASC arrives. It's just nice to have leadership in the room on that day, and we'll get you more information on that. But that May 4th is a good day to be there. That's the Sunday, and then Cinco de Mayo is the 5th, and that's when the full WASC study will launch. Which Cinco de Mayo, what could go wrong?
If you could have Cahiga send out calendar invites.
Yeah, you write that?
It would help me to block off time.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'll make sure the WASC team prioritizes times that they really want you in the room for.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And then we'll be notified in June and July about our accreditation status, right? There's a multitude of different options there. You could get a 1 year, which would not be great. We don't want that. You could get a 3 year, I don't think that would be unusual. I'm really looking for a 6-year. I think that's appropriate. Or there's a 6-year full or a 6-year with a mid checkup, which is pretty likely for a first accreditation. You're a brand new school. If they issued you the 6 with the 3-year checkup, that'd be probably a pretty normal one to look for. So I'm excited about that. I do want to talk about the self-study report itself because it's really coming together right now, and some of people, some of y'all are good readers. You might want to read the whole thing. I'm going to tell you what you should focus on if you want to read the brief copy. I mean, chapter 1 is just a progress report. Since your last visitation, what progress have you made? And since our first and only visitation was freshman year, this would be like, hey, what progress have you made in the last 4 years? Here's your school profile, your supporting data. There's a lot of data and finding. Some of the data nerds are going to love that chapter, but it's probably not the read you have to read. This is the one you'll probably want to read, but it's the longest one. It goes through all 5 areas, leadership, curriculum, instruction, assessment, culture. It's a lot of dialogue from the focus groups. The teacher group said this, the classified group said this, the leadership group said, so it's a lot of read. You probably might dig into it as like the love and the narrative of what people are saying. But these 2 last chapters, if you didn't read anything else, that's what I would love for the board to really dig into. Hey, what were the findings, the major, what are we saying we need to focus on, and what is the action plan to meet that? Your 4 and 5 are big time for us as a board, because that will really dovetail right in next year's strategic planning. If we build our whole strategic plan next year and we ignore 4 and 5, we're not going to do well when they come back in 3 or 6 years. And so I would ask that, these gold stars here was what I would love for you to get your eyes on. I included 3 because I thought, well, you'll probably want to peek through there and see what people said. And we've really tried to make it an authentic self-study, not just showing the shiny good stuff when people said, there is really self-critical analysis in there that says, hey, where aren't we meeting the mark? Where should we be stretching our thinking? How could we be doing better than we're doing? Even though we're doing well in so many areas, how can we stretch? So any questions about WASC, what it looks like? I'll get you a document at the April board meeting. I'll get you the whole thing. And you'll have, a full month to read it before they come out. Cool. What they do when they come out. Anybody been part of a WASC visitation? Suzanne, have you? Yeah. Yeah, and if anybody ever wants to go on a WASC and go visit another school, I could definitely get you on a team. They're always looking for volunteers who are willing to do that work. They'll come out on Sunday. We'll do a bit of a reception. We'll kind of walk them through the facility. But then on Monday, right at 8 a.m., they'll pull a focus group. And they'll say, hey, you guys said this, this, and this, and those are your findings. But then you say in your action plan this. Can you button that together for me from your perspective? And then they'll jump to a next focus group, and they'll work through Monday pretty heavy in focus groups, and then they'll break out and walk classrooms. And they'll go, all through this document, it says joyful learning. Is it happening? All through this document, they say hands-on, or they say whatever it is. Then they go out and really look for evidence of that. And they ask kids, hey, can you tell me what you're seeing here? So it's a really cool 3-day process. And then they write all night on days 1 and 2. So they come into day 3 with some real findings for you. Okay.
I have,
yeah.
I certainly will read the whole thing.
I know you will.
But I would probably still appreciate if anyone had the time, like a Cliff Notes version. If only so if I was in a group and I was being asked questions, I would feel like I was targeting what our position is.
When I think 4 and 5 are the Cliff Notes to
They
the
really
whole thing.
are?
They
Okay.
really are. I mean, 4 is 2 pages.
Okay,
It's
that's what I can't.
Yeah, it's really a summary. It's great. It's good to call that out because you'll get the doc and I think it's only 60 pages. Maybe
Only.
I know. Well, you're trying to tell your whole story in 60 pages, right? But I think if you read these 12 pages at the end, you'll be like, yep, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I was picturing the charter, so I guess that's
Totally.
maybe half that thing.
No,
So okay.
maybe a quarter. Yeah, right. 250-page charter. Sally?
Would you recommend that we print it out and mark it up? Is it something that you want our
It's a great question.
For us to
I
carry
mean,
it forward or just to know?
yeah, no, I mean, I want you informed so that if you're in a focus group and they're like, hey, how true is it that they use flex blocks to kind of meet the needs of kids? And you would say, well, I am aware of that, or I'm not aware of that, right? And so part of it is awareness. Well, yes, I am aware that we do that. I don't have any contextual knowledge because I don't work at the high school. So you would just be your honest, truthful self. But like, as a board, having more knowledge about the program is probably better than less, right? So yeah, I mean, I will probably print it out and scratch on it and write on it and ask questions and things like that. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
If you can't tell, you have a room full of overachievers
Totally.
who want to do well on the test.
I know.
And so any tips,
Yeah.
any test-taking tips you
Yeah.
might have might be
Well,
helpful.
okay, I'll come back in April. Let's make a note. Let's do a test prep session in April.
I hate to put it that way,
No,
but
it's
you know
great.
I mean? Like, I think we all understand
Yeah.
the seriousness of this process. I do remember my questions from 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3
now?
years ago when you did the initial.
I
Yeah.
remember doing it, right? And so, how you're phrasing those questions is like, makes perfect sense
Yeah.
to me, because that's exactly how they were posed in my interview.
Yeah.
But I still would like just to make sure, I mean, I know we can come into it as board members and staff members with that perspective. I just, again, I don't wanna miss a highlight.
Yeah, we'll do a little test prep session. Yeah, it really is. It's not a gotcha deal, but they are somewhat curious if there is a common understanding across the organization. You know, if I ask 5 teachers, you know, how much weight does the mission hold? You know, and 4 of them go, "What's the mission?" You go, "Okay," you're right. If you've said in the document that the mission means something, and then you ask 5 people and it only means something to 2 people, then they know. But we don't claim in our document. We're pretty honest in the document, so I think it'll be a fun read.
Well, I also think it's fun to have a presentation about it next month too, because people at home watching it might better understand the process and what it means, particularly maybe even your freshman or sophomore parents. Hopefully senior parents maybe have kind of watched it happen, but maybe they don't know either.
We had pretty good parent turnout for the parent group, but
Right, that's what I'm
yeah.
thinking. So it's a great educational tool that we can always point people back to on the YouTube too.
Yeah, well, and like I said, as we launch strategic planning in all of next year, I mean, this will be a kind of a cornerstone piece. Yeah.
And I thought we could share it with Impact too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Any other thoughts or questions about WASC? Cool. Let's talk a little lottery enrollment. We held our lottery here in this room, the public random lottery, on Monday, March 3rd. Applicants all got their email that evening, most of them before they left the room. For the first time in school history, we went ahead and pulled all applicants all at one time. You know, we've always done it one grade level at a time. And when we got lotteries 6 years ago, 7, 6, it was like, they said, you can do it all at once. We're like, no, thank you. We're terrified. And it took us like 6 years to be like, are we doing this? And we prepped and we checked, and it worked great. I mean, we clicked it, and everybody didn't have to sit through the same thing, me saying over and over and over again. And we said it once, and then everybody got the results, and everybody moved on, and it left lots of time for people to ask questions and things like that. So it's great.
Are you saying for the first time we are on this end of the bell curve in terms of adoption of technology?
I know, usually.
We're normally over here on the bell curve.
I know. I was on the late adopter because I'm like, hey, there's only like 3 things I don't want to mess up in life, and one of them is lottery.
Hey,
Yeah.
fully supportive.
Yeah. We offered 105 kindergartners, which is our practice. We offered 2 4th grade, and we offered 75 9th grade. Everybody's tracking me on that. The 2 4th grade expansion, the 105 kindergartners, because you hold 5 back in case of retention, and with 75 9th grade. Click. There we go. As of 3/12, here's what we have confirmed. 103 of the 105 kindergartners have accepted, and you have 160 still on the wait list. Don't think we'll run through that. You have both 4th grade have accepted. Just wanted to note that we do still have 12 siblings on the wait list in 4th grade and 136 on the wait list. And so, you know, in that story, I only tell it because I'm telling you 4th grade, but there are several siblings in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all the way up. So, especially since we've expanded the high school, and so people have gotten into the high school, right, in 9th grade, and they go, oh, I got a sibling who's already in 3rd grade, and you kind of missed that kinder mark. And so, lots of siblings out there. And 70 of 75 9th grade have accepted, and we have 61 remaining on the wait list. Like to fill those last 5 and then see where we're at.
That seems pretty solid.
It's pretty solid. I mean, noting that Yeah, well, let me show you the next slide of what our enrollment projections look like. The 24-25, which obviously is this year, this is our current enrollment pattern with a total of 481 students in the high school. And this is our projected for next year. So we'll take 145 freshmen, 145 sophomores, 120 from this original 124 moving up, and then we're calculating out at 95 in 12th grade, from this 99 moving up. Did I say that right? I think I did. So that would give us a total projected enrollment of 505. You'll recall that this year we budgeted on 500 high school students, and we fell from 500 to down to 481. This year we're budgeting on 490 and projecting out 505. I'd like to stay at 505. I'd like to get to 510 if we could or should, but we're gonna play it out as we go forward. We are now coming into our 5th year as a high school, which is so exciting, and we're still learning the matriculation patterns. And there's going to be a lot to learn over this next decade before. I still talk to my colleagues down the street who are like, yeah, you'll never actually know from year to year how it's all going to matriculate. So,
sorry, real fast. Say this is a good time
yeah.
too. Like, in past years, you've reminded everybody that we can't just make up the difference by taking in more 9th graders off the wait list.
Yeah, it's problematic. So what happens is, like, if you take the total number of 9th graders and you go, okay, great, divide them by 28 kids in the class. How many English classes do you need in the master schedule? Well, you can't just go, we'll just load that up to 160 so that we get up to this magic number of 500. Because what happens is then you end up with 42 kids in it. And you think, I could take this total number and divide it evenly at 28 kids per class. But no, they need an English class and a math class and a science class and a PE class. And so what happens is, you end up with one class of 42 and one class of 26. And it's not just real it's not simple math. So really, when you build a high school staffing calendar, you do it not on the same ratio that you do at the elementary. Elementary is super easy. I got 110 kindergartners at 22 per class. I got 5 teachers. Easy peasy. High school, the kids move every period and they have different needs. And if a kid fails math and they got to retake it again, that's one more kid in a math class, and there's one less kid in an art class. And so there's a lot of moving parts. And so you really got to be aware of that as you're doing projections, because you don't want to accidentally overload a grade level, and then you need an extra English teacher here, which means you're pulling an English teacher from somewhere else, or maybe you don't even have an English teacher, and someone has to go to 120%, or you have to hire somebody. So yeah, it's good.
And I really only mention it because if there's families who are on the wait list watching from home.
Yeah, they're like, hey, you can fit one more.
Right.
Yeah.
I just like to take this opportunity each year, I think, to explain the mythical magic of math.
Yeah.
into
Well,
building
and we're capped at the at 500 enrollment with an allowance of 3%. So, we're allowed to squeak up a little bit, and so we're trying our best to balance we want to accommodate as many kids as we can, but also offer everybody a great opportunity when they get here at an appropriate class size, as well as not over enroll, because we do have an enrollment cap. Any questions on lottery or enrollment? Super duper. Interim budget. No, that's not me. That takes it back to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on to consent, can we do a check for public comments?
Sure. I'm seeing none over here.
Perfect. We have 4 items on the consent agenda for tonight, items A through D. Is there anything the board wishes to pull? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move consent.
Thank you, Amber. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sean.
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
That's everybody. I had to do a double check.
Thank you. That brings us to our first action item tonight, which is accept and approve WCS's 24-25 second interim budget.
Oh, yeah, got the right date on there. Yeah, well done.
So just say 23, 24.
Earlier today.
No, we fixed it. We just didn't fix mine.
You didn't catch that one. So we're here talking about the second interim budget tonight. Second interim budget is everything between July 1st of this year through January 31st. I like to frame it as kind of the NWEA test of the budget,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of a litmus test. You kind of, on the tail end of the budget year, getting close to it. So it's like, how is the budget doing as the school is moving through the budget year and through the school year? So we've kind of checked the first couple boxes off earlier in the year with the first interim budget and financial audit. So now we're in that third row with the second interim and looking at the second interim budget this evening. It's timely because it is due on the 15th, which is just a couple days away. So again, we are just meeting.
Do you want a Saturday?
Yeah, it's always March 15th. Yeah, so yeah. The
There's
date
probably
remains
some statute that
consistent.
gives you to the following
They
business
may
day.
give you to like Monday in
Okay.
this case, right?
That's St. Pat, that's another holiday.
I'm right.
It's still
Yeah,
Tuesday.
right. I don't think the state cares that much. In this case, but I'll make a note of it and tell the governor next time we see him.
I'm sure he's open to it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right. So again, we're right on the budget timelines and everything else and running accordingly. So, next slide up. So what's in the budget? Similar to recent budgets, it contains all the revenue from the state, that we get from the SELPA, interest from the county office that we get on our earnings or on the savings that we have, revenue from base, from waves, so everything all from revenue side is there. We update all of our facts and figures using school services data. That's the primary resource that we use. We also get information from the district in the form of tax information. We get information from the SELPA for our special education funds and things like that. So all those figures are all updated. And then we also base it upon the governor's January budget proposal. When he came out in January, he updated projections, and we use that kind of going forward into the multi-year projections that are in the budget. So looking at the revenue, LCFF has been updated. Enrollment has been updated. So all those kind of pieces we just talked about, those are all updated in the budget. You'll see supply and field lesson donations are still lagging a little bit to what we had asked. But again, they're all budgeted. So we always ask for donations, but every field lesson, every donation that we ask for is always backed by school funds. So even if we don't get any donations, again, every student is going on every field lesson that the school has planned. Donations are just used as an offset. But of course, we appreciate that they come in. One-time donations. So this is the last year of our Silicon Schools donation. We've always appreciated their contributions as they've come in, but this is the last year for that. This also would have been the last year of the Hastings Growth Fund. For the past many years, the Hastings Growth Fund has provided $1,000 per student growth. And so we have been on a rapid growth cycle over the past number of years. Although this year, it doesn't seem as though the Hastings Growth Fund is going to come through, and not just for us, but maybe even statewide. Usually the donation would have come in by now, and they're still kind of lagging a little bit, so it's possible that in our last big growth year, it won't come in. So we're still talking with the folks who kind of manage those pockets of funds, seeing if it will come in, but again, usually we would have heard by now, so it would have been about a $130,000 donation to us. But there's still hope, so we'll see what happens. If it comes in, it'll be in our final year-end budget. But again, there's always a chance, but at this point, it's not looking like it's going to come in.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, but anyway, on the expenditure side of the house, the budget is largely within what we would anticipate and anticipate at the start of the year. The board has approved over the past couple months some additional student services contracts. You may have recall seeing some master services agreements. Those are largely them. We've also seen some overtime costs over these past few months, and then our substitute costs have also increased. Second interim is an interesting time. You're either going to get hit really hard with cold and flu season, and this year we were hit, I think everybody was, with like the quad flu, whatever they call it. Right? It was cold and flu, it was norovirus, it was everything was out there. And folks were out, and rightly so. So we called in a lot of our subs, and we have a vendor that we use for those, and so we called quite a few of them in, and so that's kind of reflected in the budget as well. And then Cal PERS and STIRS costs. Luckily, Cal STIRS is relatively flat at 19.1%, and that's been consistent for a number of years. On the Cal PERS side, it's 27.2% this year. It'll go up slightly next year, about 1% more the following year, and then it kind of plateaus and flats a little bit, hopefully. So, many years ago, it was 8%, 12%, and growth from there. Now, you're again, that's 30% that the employee does not see. It goes straight down to CalPERS to fund the pension system that classified employee will see upon retirement. But again, it's a cost that the school bears. That's it on the expenditure side.
Yep.
Perfect, yeah. So this next slide just shows a pie format where all the money comes in. So you can see mostly it's LCFF funding. So there's the big blue kind of piece of the pie. You can see it's all really state funding. A little bit from the EPA, also state funding. A piece for special education, other state revenues, and then other local revenues or donations and things like that. So that's all how the money coming in. And of course, we have the comparison. Where's the money go, right? And it goes largely towards staff and salaries. So you can see, certificate salary, classified salaries, benefits, and then books and supplies and services. The services chunk of the pie, if you will, is large, right? But we have some large services. A lot of our, again, special education services are in there. Clean It is in there. Law and Order is in there. You've got some really kind of heavy-duty service providers that are sitting in there that, if they were on staff, would flip it over to the other areas as well. So what I call something that's specifically on the revenue distribution side, real quick, if you click one more ahead, that is the EPA. It's kind of been sitting in there for a number of years now, and sitting both in the budget and in the slide deck. But if we'll go one more ahead, we'll just talk briefly about the EPA. This is not the EPA we're all probably familiar about at the federal level. This is the Education Protection Account, local to California. So quick history on the EPA. Back in 2012, seems like quite a long time ago, Proposition 30 was passed by voters. So what Prop 30 did is it passed a tax on high income earners on their personal income. So it charged high income earners a little bit more on the personal income tax, and then increased the sales tax for all of Californians. And this really helped the state of California. If you recall, back in 2012, California was in a really bad place from a budget standpoint, and really in what they call the Great Recession. So Prop 30 helped California kind of get out of that recession, and then a few years later, Prop 55 was approved, and the sales tax kind of sunsetted, but it reauthorized and kind of reiterated the personal income tax on high income earners, so that it kept on going. And that is really the EPA bucket. And again, it allowed it to go to 2030. Well, back in 2016, 2030 was
so far away.
That's some other guy's problem. It's way down the line, right? Well, here we are after COVID and everything else. 2030 is not too far away anymore. So when you think about the EPA funds, the LEO has come out, the Legislative Analyst Office has come out and said, well, the EPA itself and Prop 55 it generates about $11 billion next year. So it's a large amount of money for the state. For Westlake itself, it generated anticipated about $2 million, a little bit more than that this year. So you can imagine for someone like Natomas, who is 10 times our size, is about a little more than $20 million. For someone like LAUSD, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. So we're talking about a very, very large pocket of money. So as the state looks forward, and the state is also looking forward at some deficit years, looking ahead, they have a couple different tools in their toolbox. They can go back to voters and ask for a reauthorization of Prop 55 to extend it. They can also take some legislative action and things like that. But again, it's still a number of years out, but it's something to pay attention to. So I figured I'd bring forward the board tonight. And then here's the same budget that's in your packet this evening, just calling out the second interim itself. And then, of course, the two columns to the right, all the multi-years. And then, last but not least, the budget itself continues to look good, as does the multi-year. So I'd be glad to take any questions if you have this evening.
I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
My comment is 5 years flies by, because 5 years ago, roughly tonight, we thought we were having a meeting where we were only going to be closed for 2 weeks for COVID. And it's just weird to think about that, but I mean, we had just,
That wasn't 30 years ago. It was March.
Yeah, and we had the meeting the night
It was March 12th and the meeting the night before. That's right.
So so to know how fast 5 years can go, it goes that fast. My second question is sort of unrelated to this, but I feel like for people watching from home and for board education purposes, if you don't mind taking on this question. it's hard not to see the federal issues with the U.S. Department of Education, as well as some of the state's concerns and potential litigation against the federal government in response to that.
Sure.
Would you mind just addressing how much federal funds affect our budget, or have the possibility of affecting our budget?
Yeah.
I was thinking the pie chart might be where to maybe point out where those funds are.
Yeah, so it's actually first of all, it's a very small dollar amount, a little more than $100,000, so by itself, very, very small. And it sits in that special education line. So in the special education kind of pie area, you've got state special education dollars, federal dollars, and you have some mental health dollars as well that also come from the state. So federal dollars by itself that the school directly gets is very, very small. The school does benefit from some federal funds in the form of, like say, school meals.
School
right?
meals,
So,
for sure.
For example, the state runs a very robust now school meal program. Years and years ago, school meals were not free for all students. So, right now, the feds provide some funds to the state, and then the state kind of, provides those meals out to all students. So there could be, some potential impact that's unknown at this point of, rules change and things change. But from a kind of pure dollar standpoint, it's fairly small. Yeah.
Now, some of our neighboring districts and schools benefit from Title I funding, which is the federal funding for students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And there's tens of millions of dollars, in neighboring districts for Title I funding. We do not receive the Title I funding, but if we did, if we were a school that relied on Title I funding and that funding were to go away, that would be a pretty massive hit. Steve, when we look at special education consuming about 7.6% of our overall budget, it's just important to call out that you said about $100,000 is federal, but there's a lot of special ed funding in this slice of the pie from the state, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of it, I think, is.
Feds, like 170,000
Yeah.
or so. Yeah, right. So, yeah. But yeah, state and other funds are there too.
Other federal funds that we don't have access to, but that other schools might, just as a educational point. I believe there's some federal transportation funds, the TUPE funds, the Title I funds, yeah.
Yeah, so most title programs come with funds. There's PCCB grant funds. So
Yeah.
if you are a new charter school and you're looking to expand and grow, there are certain grants that are available to that. Back in the day, Westlake
Yeah, we got
Middle
it.
School as a separate entity applied for a federal grant, was awarded the federal grant, spent the federal grant. So if you're looking for a new type of grant program and have recently applied for that, those funds could potentially be at risk in sitting out there.
Yeah, and I'm obviously talking about budget, but if you were to ask that same question at some point about, educational oversight, it's different. If there's,
There's different programmatic questions that may come up in the coming months and years. But I just ask this from a financial standpoint because there's a lot of information out there and a lot of different stressors around the changes we're facing. So at least on this smaller piece of our budget, right, we can say to our families, this isn't something to really concern yourself with at this point. The board's got it. It's a small piece.
Sure.
And we're aware of it. That's really why I asked.
Yeah, and I would just also comment, we get frequent updates now from school services. So not only on the fiscal side as far as like updates, but also on just regulatory updates on where they're seeing things head.
Are there any other board questions related to the second interim?
I don't have a question, but I'll move that we accept and approve the second interim budget.
Perfect. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean.
Well, yeah. Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
very good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not used to so few names.
That's right.
Me too. I'm
I
like,
got
did I
sucked
get
into
everybody?
I'm going through the list. Wait, no, there's two more. Oh, yeah, there isn't. On to action item B, accept and approve certificated compensation proposal. Sally,
I would like to recuse myself from this conversation.
thank you. And just for the record, that's due to the fact that Mrs. Hubbard is on our staff here and is subject to
Conflict.
because it's a compensation proposal that affects her.
That's right. I do have a very short slide on this topic.
Actually, we didn't check public comment for the last one. I know you have it up, but just also for the record, there haven't been any that come in yet, and we'll continue to watch.
That's right. Seeing none.
Sorry.
You're good.
And one slide is great.
Great. Yeah, so obviously there was a pretty comprehensive board brief in the packet tonight for our board members to review. I just thought I would just kind of talk certificated salary proposal and what we kind of see, for almost a decade now. We have created a comparability matrix where we compare our salary schedule to 9 geographically located schools and districts, north, south, east, and west of us. As far south as Elk Grove, we go up to Woodland, we go over here to Twin Rivers, we go up there to Rockland, we compare to some other charter schools, Delta Charter School, Natomas Charter School, NP3 Charter School. We create a comparability matrix, and then we study how are we doing in comparison to these other places regionally. We can't look at every single cell, which would take a long, long time. So we just go, hey, in classes 1, 3, and 5, so you're getting always spread across the columns, and in rows 1, 5, and 8, how do we compare? Well, why do we do those rows? Well, because for that entire decade that we're describing, we've only taken 7 years from the outside. So if you're coming to work at Westlake Charter School, the most number of years we're going to give you is 8 years. And so if you're in class 1, class 3, or class 5, based on your number of units that you hold, we'll know if we're comparable. And so we've always been working on the salary schedule to make sure that we're comparable on this matrix. And as we as a board have decided, hey, instead of taking 7 years, let's take 15 years. And so the finance committee kind of pulled and we went, oh, whereas we are more comparable here, we are less comparable here. Well, that was an interesting finding. Then we realized, well, you're starting to see some more comparable, less comparable, least comparable down here in the corner. We said, hey, let's not wait another 10 years and pull this thing down to 20 and find out that underneath the rug we've been sweeping. And so we pulled it down to 20 and went, oh my gracious. We are more comparable up here. We are less comparable right here, and we are least comparable right here. And right now, in the history of Westlake Charter School, you have a good number of staff members who are kind of moving down into this area. And so when you talk about recruit, hey, we can recruit, develop, and retain. This retention piece becomes a big deal. And so as you look at the proposal before you tonight, what it says is hey, if this area up here, if we're off by 3 to 5% on average, then we're probably off here by, 6, 7, 8%. We could be off down here by more than 10%. We would like to propose that we put money into this salary schedule in such a way that these 3 tiers start to kind of balance out. So you're going to spend more money catching up down here, but to be honest, in the last several years, we've spent more money up here trying to become comparable. And so we think that the next version of this, after tonight's proposal, makes the whole thing a similar comparison, whereas we were most competitive, less competitive, least competitive. Now we'll be equally competitive across the 3 areas. And that's why thank you, Steve Korbick. It took him 50 different models. Let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. Let's create it this way. And I think where it resolved is really strong. Are there any questions for our team before anybody makes a motion?
I don't have a question. I just am very appreciative because for me, this is enormous. Keeping those staff members, those teachers who have been here for a long time, all of our history and our mission and our values. I'm thankful.
Yeah, I will note that we walked the proposal and model. I walked and spoke with, more or less everybody who's down in this corner, and just said eyeball to eyeball, hey, this board I think is going to be looking at this, and I think they really want to support you, but I'd like some feedback. Are we making the right move? Is this move enough? And to a T, everyone was very encouraged by the move. I also talked to several people who were here who I said, hey, you're not getting as big a bump as somebody's going to get down here, but to a T, every single one of the people I talked to said, yeah, but this tells me you're valuing me staying here until I get down here. And so it's been well received as I walked around the campus and spoke with all the staff.
And I do want to add that was important, I think, to the committee, because we're very mindful. Sorry, Sean, correct me if I speak wrong. We're very mindful of the anticipated costs of this increase, and we certainly acknowledge the size and scope of it.
It's big, yeah.
And so it's absolutely necessary that we do this now. It's been kind of this time bomb that we knew was coming, because it's really hard for us to keep up with the large districts that get more money, right? For all the various other programs
Title
that we
I,
talked
yeah.
about earlier. But we certainly, as you've heard Sean and I talk about the culture code and valuing mission-driven decisions, and knowing that we don't only want to recruit, we want to retain, and that we have such a strong staff that we value and are so grateful and thankful for, that this just, it strikes that balance. So hearing that staff were understanding of it and appreciative of it, and knowing that this felt like something we could do now. I mean, we have other pieces to look at in the ongoing months and years, where this, compensation review never ends. And I know John's working hard on classified staff, because certificated and classified, they go together. They're not in our purview, right? But the committee was also mindful of making sure John still had leeway to do what he needed to do for the rest of the staff. And so it's hard, and knowing the CalPERS rates and CalSTRS rates, and for every $1 increase that we give, it's another 18 to 30 cents that on the dollar, or then having to give to pensions. It's always a tough decision, but the committee did such good work this time. I'm always proud to be part of it, and this was no different. You should see on poor Steve. I mean, I really put him through the ringer. Like, that's not red enough, and that needs to be more green so I can actually understand how far off we are. I really was a pain this cycle, and so thank you, Steve and John, for all the work you put in on this, because it was a humdinger.
Any other questions or comments before we seek a motion?
Let me just check for public comment real fast before you do that.
Seeing none.
Perfect. Sean, do you have something you'd like to do?
I do. I would like to thank my committee and the staff who support the committee for as hopes. I can't say it any better than a humdinger. It was definitely that. And then I would like to move these certificated compensation.
And I'd like to second it. Sorry if humdinger wasn't right. It really, I mean, this one, we had so much we needed to address, and systemically there's so much going on. Like, we're trying to read tea leaves here in some ways. And so, as always, sorry, I don't mean to add on after, but Steve does a fabulous job of taking the different pieces of guidance we get and then distilling it in a way that lets the non-financial person on the committee understand it. And I just always appreciate that. Sorry, Edie.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
My turn?
Yes. Sorry.
That's a humdinger, Hope.
I'm sorry. I do this.
It's the word of the day. Everybody has to use it at the meeting.
All in
No,
favor
I
of
come up
say
with these
humdinger.
words that I can never. I mean, I've
It's
been on
the
this board a
best.
long time.
Yeah,
Speaking
you-
of 2012, since that's when I came onto the board.
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Humdinger.
Amber.
Yes.
Wait, does humdinger mean yes?
Does in my head.
Humdinger means yes.
Okay. Sorry, it's important, so I want to make
It
sure.
is important. Amber
Yes.
and Suzanne.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome back to the
Yes.
board Sally Hubbard. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your support of our staff. It means a lot. I know you know that.
We have one discussion item on tonight, which I'm sure John will want us to participate in, so get your questions ready.
That's right.
The academic report.
Otherwise, it's just me and these 93 slides all by myself.
We're
Actually,
on track for a fast meeting, so how many?
well, yeah, you way to jinx it. Way to go. Way to go. It could be a
Is there
minute.
that many? Oh, gosh. Okay.
What slide are we on? We're on 51, with
yeah,
just
there's probably
43 to go.
40, yeah.
Actually, I had some interesting, dialogues with myself I had some interesting conversations, by myself on this academic report because we've just recently approved new board and executive director goals.
Did you respond to yourself though? Because that might be the sign of a problem.
It's all via ChatGPT. It's
Okay,
fine.
just checking. It would be, huh?
So I kind of want to start off kind of setting the context for like why we're doing an academic report in the first place, right? Board goal number 1, as of now, says the board is committed to becoming regularly informed about the continuous improvement efforts and outcomes regarding academic and social emotional readiness, as well as, this is where you come in, providing feedback from diverse perspectives. So that is your commitment to receive, become informed. Okay, great. The executive director goal number 1 says lead a multi-year effort to show measurable growth and progress toward academic and social emotional readiness in alignment with our Westlake Charter School graduate profile. I'm leading a multi-year effort to do a thing. You're going to hear about it regularly. I feel like it's very synergistic. We also have WASC goal 3 for now. Now, when the WASC report comes back next, 2 months from now, we'll have new goals, I think. But it says develop a systematic approach to measure and analyze academic and social emotional student outcomes to continuously determine learner needs. All right, so that's like sets the stage. We're gonna get down into it. You can see I've highlighted this. I think this is a kind of a 4-step process. Number 1, establish the targets. What are all these outcomes we're even talking about? We have these goals that say we're gonna measure outcomes. Which outcomes? What is it we're trying to do here? We have these show measurable growth on what? Outcomes regarding academic. What does that mean? Show student outcomes. So we're going to talk about establishing targets. The next step in the whole process, is to deploy efforts. What are these efforts to make progress toward these targets? It says right here, continuous improvement efforts, multi-year effort. We're efforting something. What are said efforts to reach what targets? It may seem trivial, but I feel like we need to have probably more conversations going forward. And that's where you come in again on the providing feedback. So I'm going to give you some efforts tonight, and you're going to go, nailed it, missed something, and that's how we'll get better going forward.
Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Otherwise,
If you're not doing effort towards the target.
right. If I'm targeting the wrong targets or I'm efforting toward the wrong direction, So I like this 4-step piece that's coming out of the synergy of these goals. The third one is why we think we're here tonight, right? Is to monitor and report on progress, which is what we do all the time at this meeting. But I don't know that we've really had a formative conversation on steps 1 and 2. So I can come out here and just do step 3. But as I looked at the goals, I went, nah, it's worth stopping and being like, what are steps 1 and 2? And I think step 4 is just like respond to the data. What does that mean? Well, you're going to provide me feedback on the data, right, from multiple perspectives. But also because this is a multi-year effort, this shouldn't be a static goal, right? We should be moving towards something, making efforts. Oop, that didn't work. Let's adjust and retool. Also, note this is continuous learning, learner needs. So, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have a non-educator. Learner needs sounds like entirely non-specific.
Yeah, it's kind of wasky.
And so I just want to make sure, is it like, can you just like, is that
it would be
English?
it would be programmatic responses to student outcomes. So hey, you guys say you're trying to make sure all kids graduate college and career ready. We see this group of kids not getting this thing. What do they need to get to your goal? So WASC says what are your goals? What are your learner outcomes? And then what are your learner needs to meet said outcomes? You guys said you use flex blocks to make sure kids get what they need, but I got this group of kids who aren't ringing the bell. What do they need? Maybe they need more than flex blocks. So that right there is develop a systematic approach to measure and analyze academic and social emotional student outcomes to do what? To continuously develop what they need to get to the goal. It's been up there for 3 years. We're going to just gloss over it.
As we go, we're doing another step though, where you're asking the board to understand and make efforts
I don't know.
targets. So I want to make sure that I understand the definition
For
of
sure,
the target.
for sure. It's programmatic. You're talking about what are you doing to help kids get what they need.
But it's not as super specific as closing the achievement gap, right? It could be very general to very specific.
Sure.
Again, depending on what any group of students need.
And depending on what you establish as the outcomes that you're monitoring and measuring, right?
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Which I think is the part where we might want to start getting more clear at some point. We can do anything we want. We can't do everything we want. What do we care about? What do we really, at the end of the day? And I'm going to propose today what I think we currently agree that we care about, and then we'll go, oh, maybe we need to care about more, or maybe we're caring about too much. Right?
Sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. I love it. Chime in. So establishing the targets, like, what are the current targets right now? Well, I know that the admin team, myself included, presented to staff and the board recently regarding, like, hey, how are we doing on the dashboard? It was the first time. Are you turning it up or down? Hotter or colder?
Yeah, even he's got his hands in his pockets,
Okay.
which means it's cold in here.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, make it hotter.
He's got his.
Usually when Steve goes to the thermostat, though, it's gonna go the other way.
down.
That's why I was making sure. Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
You're
Yes,
you're by
please,
the window, so
please
you
don't
can-
light a fire. So we recently came out and spoke with staff and the board about dashboard outcomes, right? And you guys will recall that conversation. And during that conversation, we established some short-term academic goals, right? We said, hey, if we grow 5 points in distance from MET on the math dashboard, we'll go up to green, and that's probably where we want to be. And on ELA, we wanted to at least maintain. Remember, maintain is losing less than 3 points, gaining less than 3 points. You want to at least maintain because we're at green on the dashboard right now. Just talk about short-term goals. That was January to April when we're going to take CASP, right? Check what are your short-term academic goals and how do you know you're heading toward them. I think we've also kind of seen this multi-year academic goal targeting the charter renewal. Because we kind of said, well, look, in 25, 26, 27, if those are your dashboard outcomes, then you're creating this multi-year targets for your charter renewal. So right now, with the data that I have as executive director, I would say, based on the conversations we've had out loud, we're starting to say this is what we seem to think are our short-term and long-term current targets. Now, as a board, and through the strategic plan process next year, because I note that during the strategic planning process, multi-year goals probably will adjust. We'll have some real formative conversations around, like, what are our academic targets? How do we know what is enough is good enough, and how do we target that? So I would propose that right now, I think we have a loose understanding of what our short-term and long-term targets are. I'm gonna report on those tonight, and I'm gonna take feedback of, like, add more of this, add less of, or take away, give me less of that. Tracking me? Cool. So step 2, deploy efforts to make progress towards said targets, right? Because we think if these short-term and long-term dashboard-related targets are the targets, then I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about some of the efforts. We have short-term intervention and a focus on spring CASP, right? We're doing some cool work there. Then we have some long-term conversation, Tier 1 professional development, Tier 2 long-term intervention. I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Let's dive into that then. On the short-term side, because we are targeting maintaining an ELA and 5 points of growth in math between now and the CASP testing. This is some of the intervention work we've done in reading from fall to winter. We've pulled intervention groups in both foundations, right? That's our phonics program, and our Just Words, and our teachers on special assignment, our instructional aides, our teachers in the classroom, our admin team are collaborating around pulling students out, giving them the support that they need. What we recognize when intervention is used with fidelity, we have a pretty good return rate on the RIT score growth on NWA. You'll look at NWA tonight and you'll recognize, oh, okay, so this is the work we're doing. We're seeing some growth. Remember that you can make scale scored growth from fall to winter and not have your percentile go up. If I'm in the 50th percentile because I scored 205, that 50th percentile moves. You got to get a 210 to be the 50th percentile in winter, and I scored it from a 205, I grew to a 208, but I lost ground on percentile. Does that make sense? So I just put that out there. We have lots of kids making growth on NWA. Some of them are making percentile growth. That's a solid indicator right there. We like that. But that's some of the short-term work we're doing at ELA. We're really trying to pour it on in math, as you know.
Well, just I appreciate that clarification, right? Because I look at the Just Words group, and it feels, even though you got 60%, it feels less successful, right?
Yeah.
Because of the much smaller percentile gain.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate pointing out, like, the difficulty in advancing percentile from fall to winter.
Yeah.
Because I think that helps helps me anyway process it from a data perspective and understanding that that's not necessarily
Yeah.
the bigger goal.
You know, it's funny too, because I mean, I don't send me down the rabbit hole, but I mean, I'm having these great conversations right now about like, what do we want to measure?
Right.
Is it growth? Then let's get to growth. Is it ringing some bell of proficiency? Is it grade level mastery? I mean, we have a bubble right now, you guys. We know. I mean, you all pick up the newspaper. We've all talked about it. You've got this bubble from the current 3rd grade to about 6th grade, who are most heavily impacted by COVID. Right? We know that. I know that the 7th graders right now got to Westlake Charter School. They're our first kindergarten class on this campus. They got kindergarten, then they had 1st grade, and it was this day, and they were in 2nd grade, and most of them could kind of read and do some math and understood school. They kind of had been baked as students. We're bringing them into 3rd grade, and that's when we start CASP testing in 3rd grade, because by then a kid kind of understands some reading, writing, and arithmetic. So the 7th graders right now were kind of fully baked a little bit. So they're the least impacted, because the next group, the 6th graders, they were just in 1st grade. They were not ready to go home to distance learning. And they did go home to distance learning, and they got impacted. And you take that all the way down to about our current 3rd grade group, because we're seeing kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade data. But we're seeing this 3rd through 6th grade. And on the fringes, I mean, it's kind of a bell curve. But the 3rd and 6th grade, that group in the middle was probably the most heavily affected. So, why do I tell you that? Well, because this is why we're needing so much intervention right now, right? We're pouring into math interventions. As you know, we're now doing some after-school math intervention and enrichment. We're experimenting. Remember the conversation that I said a point is a point. So we're trying to grow 5 points. The student who is struggling below grade level, if I grow 5 points, that's good for the school. But if the gifted student who's already scoring high, if she could grow 5 points too, 5 points is 5 points. So we're doing some experimentation in these after-school math programs. We identify students using NWA and CASP, and we did intervention for CASP levels 1 and 2 or NWA level below the 20th percentile. So those are your intervention groups. We also pulled some groups of CASP level 3 kids who could maybe grow to level 4, and kids who scored in the 60th to 80th percentile. So you have some like students who are below grade level, and maybe some kids are at grade level, and pulling them into these math after school intervention or enrichment groups to see how they do. So we did our first 5 weeks. Now we're going to go look at our NWA scores right now, and all of this intervention takes place after the NWA test, which is kind of a stinker, because I'm like, well, great. But if it does produce results on CASP, and then we start this same type of intervention in the fall, bang, 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 we're kind of cooking with butter. So 60 students participated in those first 5 weeks. Lessons were aligned to very targeted mathematics skills. Over 450 Imagine Math lessons were passed by the participating students. The way we broke it up in the intervention group was we split the group in half, had this group launch Imagine Math, where we did direct instruction with this group, and then we flipped them. So they were doing some Imagine Math and getting some very small group with a teacher. And then here we are on the March 11th to April 24th. Next 6 weeks, we have 72 students targeted, and we're starting to incorporate some math practice items from the CASP bank this time around. So some good math intervention work there. We're doing some.
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, like what?
Yeah. This group is 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Okay.
This group, a good call. This group is 3rd, 4th, 5th. And as I talk about that bubble, right, you're right in the thick of the bubble right there. You have math focused, though, for all students, K-12, around a couple of pieces. This Imagine Math piece, as you note, we kicked off in November. There is a little bump in the fall to winter NWA math scores, and that's unusual, because usually when the curve shifts from fall to winter, we see a dip in reading and math. And this year, you actually see a little bump in math, but we started off a little lower, so it wasn't like it feels that great. And I'm like, where'd that bump come from? I know there was a focus, we've been talking about it, but it also, like, we started this in November, so I'm like, who knows? We'll see. Well, I don't want to put too many chips on it, but I'm like, okay, it certainly has put our focus on it.
Take a win.
Yeah, well, we'll take it if it comes.
Sometimes we just have to take
We'll take it if it
the win.
comes. Yeah, I mean, the idea is that if you're utilizing Imagine Math 10 minutes a day. It would help students to meet the weekly goal of 45 minutes for K2 and 60 minutes for 3-8, because the company, the vendor says if you're hitting those targets, you're moving kids through math at an accelerated rate. And so that's what we're trying to do. If you are behind, what we see in our growth scores that I brought you guys last month, what we see is our kids are getting a year of growth. Our teachers are doing this great job. We're getting a year of growth. Then why are we behind? Well, because all of the kids are started behind, because they came back from the pandemic behind, and we've given them a year of growth. So this hopefully gives them 1.25 years of growth or 1.5 years of growth, right? It helps accelerate the growth. Imagine Math focuses on students' work on their own personalized goals based on their NWA scores. And then we've also been launching these focused interim assessment blocks. These are interim assessments that are produced by the state that directly align to CASP. And so when you utilize them, they give you this really rich data on how will you really perform on CASP. Not how well does NWEA think you're going to perform on CASP, but like how does CASP think you're going to perform on CASP? And we haven't really utilized them school-wide. We had some experimenters, some innovators get out there and try it. But right now what we have is all of our math teachers, 3 through 8 and 11, are facilitating at least 2 of the FIABs before spring break. So really we're going to be able to target these focused areas and see how it goes. And in our PLC we'll go, what did we learn from that? If that is a promising practice, look at all the things we could carry forward to next fall. All of the things that I've described in the last 2 slides are just from January till now. If we find what works and can bring it forward to the next fall, that'd be great. Those are the short-term efforts. Here are kind of the long-term efforts, which you hear me talk about often, and they're all inside of our strategic plan, basically, right? All of our focus on Tier 1 professional learning. Our teachers are getting a 6-part series leveraging math curriculum in the fall. It's being built by a brilliant set of teachers right now. Love that panel. We have a 6-part series on instructional practices for 6-12. Also a great group working on that. We're building a 6-part series on K3 phonics and literacy, which will be available next spring. But again, that would be really targeting math and ELA. So why are we targeting that? Because we think those are the targets that we all said. We think we're targeting the dashboard. So when you look at like this type of work, we're starting to target in on that dashboard work as opposed to some of that other work we love to do, that joyful learning, that innovator type piece. So we need to make sure that we're not tipping the scale and going away from who we are as a school while still supporting the work that is necessary to meet the targets that we're setting out for ourselves. One of the things that we're talking about is some structured peer coaching that we're potentially piloting in the fall to make PD a little more sticky. I go to a 6-part series and I go, hey, thanks for all the information. That was really cool. I might use some of this. That's a different paradigm than like, hey, thanks for that 6-part series that you're expecting me to use in my instructional practice. Those are 2 different paradigms. So if Sally Hubbard is my coach and she's coaching me and she goes to PD with me, Sally's going to learn some math in the math series, but Sally's also going to sit with me and go, hey, John, last week in the math series, we learned this technique. I'm going to use it in my class. Come watch me. Then I'm going to come watch you using it in your class. And we think that that's going to make PD a little more sticky. So we're thinking about piloting, experimenting with that. We also have a very robust set of data protocols now that have been developed this year and launched this year that I think are longitudinal. I think as we use them year after year in our PLC, we're going to get more expert at that. And then this continuation in the fall of this thing we developed in the winter, of this during school and after school interventions. So those are some of the short-term and long-term efforts to target what we think are these goals. Sally?
Could you, if you go back to the reading intervention, what grade levels are those? Like the phonics is K3 and then 4-5 just words?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're on the K5 side of the house for all of that intervention. That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true. I think there's an eventual finding in some eventual future where we go, hey, do we need a full-blown reading program? We've adopted a phonics program, and I think that is a stretch from where we were. But at some point, it's hard to align a reading program through middle school when you don't have one.
Yeah. I was looking at that with the pie chart on our expenditures, and the curriculum part is so small other schools and districts would have that be a much larger piece of the pie with a boxed curriculum.
Yeah, I don't know if that's 100% true, just because while the box curriculum is expensive, it's a one-time expenditure, and what really costs you slices of the pie are people that come back every year and cost you every year, right? So while it's $100,000 for a box curriculum, it's $100,000 for a teacher with benefits, and that teacher comes back every year, and once you buy the curriculum, it's there for 7 to 10 years. So, I don't know, yeah, that may be true. That may be true. It'd be interesting to do some budget analysis on other districts and see what they allocate in that books and supplies. Because I would argue that our supply budget is probably higher than those districts that have store-bought curriculum. Because what they don't do is empower teachers to use their supply budgets to do anything cool.
That'd be interesting to look at,
Yeah.
how much does it cost to make color copies and
I could tell you.
a math lesson every single day?
Yeah.
Versus have a book, but then that takes away teachers as designers.
Sure. Yeah, right. Yeah, the unlimited lamination fund versus like, be on page 17, it's Tuesday, we're all on the same page at the same time.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking, right? Like, it's that slippery slope of being the charter incubator, right? Like, how far do you go into box curriculum before everybody's teaching the exact same thing?
Well, and be careful, because you measure what matters, and once you say that the dashboard matters, and you go, hey, who's performing well on the dashboard? Those were the box curriculum. So you go out and get the box curriculum, and then you wake up in 5 years, and everybody's like, just doing the box curriculum. And there goes, we don't have time for the difference makers wax museum anymore. And there's no time to go off to that field lesson to San Francisco tomorrow in 7th grade. Like, it may seem simple, but it's not.
Right, and then your ability to combine the different disciplines into one unit,
So,
like we've
the
done a lot
thematic
of work
unit.
to put science and reading together, or math and social studies.
Right.
Through starting your business in the constitutional age, right? Like there's just so
And
I
so
just,
there's
I always
and so
worry.
there's there's an argument on the ELA curriculum, but I think a reading program is probably your next, and on that reading intervention piece, because you now have phonics and phonics intervention, and you have this really lightweight reading intervention, but you don't have a very robust reading program. So I don't know that you and I would ever get to a full-blown ELA curriculum, because I don't think we want that. But I wonder if some future iteration of us has a reading piece. Yeah, it's a good call out, because I thought what I heard you saying was like, hey, where's that intervention? Oh, it's K5. I'm in 6th grade. What are we doing for that kid? Right?
Particularly when next year we're gonna have our 6th and 7th graders who are part of that bubble.
So that bubble's gonna come through middle school and end up in high school. Yeah.
In 2 years, it'll be
Yeah.
all middle.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that, right, with high school we have flex box, right? And then K5 we have intervention, but what are we doing at the middle school?
But even if you have the time, which is yes,
don't, yeah.
what's great about you
You don't.
utilize flex blocks in high school, in part because high school is so assignment driven.
Yeah.
If you I need help with the assignment, whereas K3 is skill driven. We learn to read before we read to learn, and so the theory is by the time they get to 6th grade, they're reading to learn, and they if they didn't learn to read, then you're going back to skill.
Or if they don't have the comprehension, then
Yeah.
they're missing out, right? on so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. These are the kind of conversations we need to have.
So my wondering, and again, I understand using the dashboard to set the goals, that makes sense to me. But at the same time, I'm internally struggling with that, because when I first came on the board, we were very driven by our score.
Well, there wasn't a dashboard when you first came on the
But
board.
there was a score.
Oh, there was the API.
There
yeah.
still was
Yeah.
a magical number that we were expected to hit.
Yeah.
And if we hit it or not, there were shirts with said score on them, if I am remembering correctly.
Before my time.
And fortune cookies.
Yes, so I guess, I understand why we're using it, I get
Yeah.
towards charter renewal, it's a different world where we kind of have to use it. But in my head, I'm knowing that, interventions are needed at an all-time high, as well as instructional aids and other student educational supports.
Yeah.
Is there a piece when we set these goals to making sure that we're doing what we can to, I don't wanna say limit, 'cause I wanna give students everything that they need, but to, manage those interventions as we do this? I'm not phrasing that very well.
Well, I think a broader question that is coming up, and I love it, and I would love to really workshop it, especially through the strategic planning, is like, what are we trying to measure?
Yeah, I guess that.
What are we getting at, man? What's really important to us? How do we not lose ourselves in this race to a dashboard built by someone other than us?
Yes.
There's this external factor, right? There's this external force that says this is what's important, and we're like, hey, is that important to us? We have to agree if it isn't. So I think we just need to be cognizant of it as we have this conversation multiple times a year around academic report. What are we reporting on? Why are we reporting on it? Is it still important to us? You can do anything you want. You can't do everything you want. I think reading would fall into the important bucket. You know? So if it is, then why are we? Yeah. So.
No, and I get that. It's just, and this is the academic part. So in my mind, I have to remind myself this is the academic half of academic and social emotional.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah, true story.
This piece, and I'm just struggling with staying in that lane because I lean.
I only highlighted that lane
I
for the
lean
night
the
though,
other
which is,
lane, so.
it's good. It's good. Step 3 then is the monitor and report. That's what I thought we were coming here tonight to do. So this is the part of the show that you actually came for. The previous part was assumed, but now I think we recognize it's not really assumed. What is the target? What efforts towards said target? No longer are assumed. I think we should go back and play in those steps. But tonight we are monitoring and reporting on progress. And so what I'd like to, have you recognize is that our admin team is doing this on a regular basis, just as the board is doing it on a regular basis. We met in January, meeting again in April. We kind of look at skills assessment, NWA, high school indicators, CAS. Here's what I'd like to us look at tonight. I put the California State dashboard up there because our dashboard doesn't yet have college and career on it because we haven't graduated anybody yet. So I grabbed the California one. But this is what I think we're going to look at tonight. NWA as a universal screener and as a CASP predictor. That's what we're going to do tonight. I think that's relevant. We're going to look at English learner progress. We're going to look at graduation rate. We're going to look at college and career readiness tonight. I haven't utilized a couple of these in previous academic reports, but as I start to ask myself, what are the targets? I'm starting to target new things. We're going to jump into NWA first as a quick reminder, right? We're going to look from winter, the fall 24 to winter 25 NWA. We're going to look at NWA as a norm reference exam, right? It's got this bell curve where you're placed in the middle, will be the 50th percentile, right? Your scale score is compared on a normative curve, and that the norms are all based on a 2020 norm reference study using national data from 3 previous years. So if you're in your 27th week of instruction, your norm scale scores are different than if you are in your 28th week of instruction, right? So it's all the way down to that comparison. Students who place in the 61st percentile are predicted to be proficient on CASP. A lot of factors go into that. But if everyone's trying their hardest and doing their best and scoring at the 61st percentile, that's who we think rings the bell. And I say this every year, but I just like to say it. You're telling me that if everybody in the nation takes the same math test, that this is the average, is the 50th percentile. And you're saying that in California, you have to be 11 points above average to meet the minimum to meet mastery. That's a competitive test. I just always point that out. Universal screener and CAS predictor. As a universal screener, we're going to look at how kids scored at the average to high range, right? So 59% of your kids score from average to high. Now, when we get to the universal screener or the prediction for CAS, it shrinks up to just the high and high average because that's the 61st percentile right there. But when we're looking at as a universal screener, how are our kids doing? We suspect these kids here are doing okay. They're passing their classes. They're on track for graduation. They can read, right? They can do mathematical computations. We think these kids right here needing extra support. This is your scores in mathematics. You're basically a 60-40 split. Okay? This is your cut for reading, slightly higher, right? A 66-34. Those are your NWA scores for 3 through 8. Didn't include 11. I will if in future iterations. And in the CAS predictors, I include 11. Just looking at this, though, as a universal screener, because these are the kids that get the intervention. You're not doing a lot of 11th grade intervention. This, as a universal screener, who's getting intervention? We look at this right here. So
it's the green, sorry, just
This-
to
you're
bring
good.
it back to what you're talking about, intervention and enrichment.
yeah.
The enrichment is targeting the green band, correct?
Yeah, these two bands I think
Yellow and
are
green?
appropriate. The high end of this, I think we said the 50th. No, I think we said 60 to 80 percentile. So yeah, you're right, all green.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure that I.
Yeah, the 60th to 80th percentile. Green bands enrichment. These guys down here. Uh-oh, don't shut down, computer. We might still need a public comment. Oops. Okay, there is our current scores. What are we doing with it? Obviously, at the teacher level, classroom teachers get classroom teacher data back on NWA. We now have PLC protocols where we're looking at growth as a team. So grade level teams are engaging in this data, and then obviously teachers are re-engaging with students and using the MTSS process for students who are behind. This was described in kind of our short-term, long-term efforts, this process right here. Students who are below the 21st percentile, these kids down here, are really our most heavily targeted kids for intervention. They may receive a digging deeper assessment in case manager through the MTSS process. They're probably targeted for interventions, right, as we talked about with math and with the reading interventions. More kids need intervention now than ever before, and we have more staff intervening than we've ever had, and we don't have enough. So I'm going to tell you that right now. We don't have enough people doing enough intervention to meet the needs of all the students in these buckets, and so we're trying to iterate and innovate. So going back to our targets, if you're looking for green on the dashboard, that's a different target than making sure no one's red. It's an interesting conversation for us to have at some level.
I mean, that's the tough.
Yeah.
That's the culture decision.
Yeah, but you can do anything you want. Sally?
Have you looked at how many kids are, say, green in math, but yellow or orange in reading? Like, not every kid is a green.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's true statement.
And how many kids are achieving in reading but not in math when we're looking at intervention? For example, if there are a greater percentage of kids who are underachieving in math and at high average or above in reading, we need more math intervention.
Yeah.
Compared to we need more reading intervention.
Yeah. I mean, we're now seeing that. We are seeing that shift. Much more of our intervention is targeting math right now all of a sudden, right? We're really pouring into that, but it's partly because we were green. Mm-hmm. So be careful what you target.
Right.
We've been green, so we're like, hey, everything's probably okay. Now it's not okay. Why is it not okay? Because it's not green anymore. So, but having kids always been red? Yeah, they've always been red. But we've all been green. And that's an equity conversation. That's a target conversation. So yeah, as we have these conversations, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to target? What data do you want to see? Do you want to see those? I mean, that's an interesting conversation of like, you cut the data. I love data. We can nerd out anytime we want, but like, what is the average, what is the likelihood that a red is a red, right? Because here you have 14 and 20, 21 and 20, 22. Those numbers line up pretty well for math and reading. Are they the same kid? I don't know. Or is there this red is this yellow and this yellow is this red? I don't know. We don't typically cut it that way because our interventions aren't across. I mean, they're targeted specific. One of the things I think we probably are trying to do in our professional learning piece is to make sure that as much tier 1 captures the kid early, because the tier 2, you're playing catch up. So we need to get back to a place where people are armed with the right equipment to tier 1 first best instruction. And then at the high school, they've got the flex block. It's their gift to be able to go, okay, great, let me catch you up. So this is what universal screening is about. This is about saying, how are the kids doing and what do they need in real time. So I want to do some achievement gap analysis. It's not one of our formal targets, but it is in our charter. So it's something I always report on. So I include it. I call that out because I'm like, at some point, we'll have to decide, is it a target to have this conversation? So I want you to look at 2024 versus 2025. Again, I used the 3-through universal screener data as opposed to the K-12 data. I mean, we can cut it however we want it, but this is what we've got for tonight to play with. And so, just look at the 24 versus the 25 and recognize the achievement gap is typically measured in our organization as an African-American white achievement gap, because that is in the research and in the literature the most typically called out achievement gap to analyze. So in our charter, it says that we are always working on closing the achievement gap, because we serve the most diverse school district and region in America. However, you could cut the achievement gap 1,000 ways, but this is the way that we do it every single time. So we're always coming back to the same data. So we're looking at the African-American white achievement gap. In 2025, that gap was 16. In 2024, that gap was 26. And so you can see we've had a shrinking of the achievement gap in this last NWA cycle from winter of 24 to winter of 25. That would be a celebration. Where do you see it? Why did that happen?
And they both grew too.
That's what's fascinating. Thank you for calling that out. So that's really interesting. So you have this math growth for both white students and African American students, but a really significant growth right there. It's interesting.
That's fantastic.
Well, and
It's interesting.
Decrease in the other three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what we're going to see, and we're not going to see massive math growth when we get to the. I mean, you see the overalls. I mean, it's 2 points here on the overall 3-3. You're going to add an 11th, and it's going to show pretty flat. But it's interesting. It's an interesting closure.
It's so great for winter.
Sure.
I wonder too, John, is
Yeah.
it, the percentage of students that are in your intervention groups was a higher percentage in the African American group, so you see that higher growth, or
Well,
are
this-
they getting more of those interventions?
Well, this data though is before intervention groups.
Oh, that's right, because there's a
Right,
really big
right.
percent.
But yeah, I mean, certainly, if you're saying who's in the intervention group, and we know the intervention group is made of students performing in the lowest percentiles, and you look at these percentiles, you go, yeah, there's going to be proportionally more African American students receiving intervention, Hispanic or Latinx students receiving intervention, right? Yeah. You all right? Yeah. So, I think it's worth noting that something. Obviously, we brought in Dr. Hawley this year, and some of the work we're doing around, engaging our students, validating, affirming, and engaging our students through a culturally responsive lens. Maybe some of that work is helping. Now, that's math. I'm sorry. I talked about math here. This is reading, and the achievement gap actually grows here. But you go, well, wait a minute though. African American performance grew here,
About a third of what the white group.
but the white students grew.
And the same thing, those two grew and the others
Didn't. I would argue maybe substantially didn't.
yes, agreed. But it's still just fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. This is.
Yeah, I can tell who the data nerds are. Here we go. I love it. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, it's one, just as my age-old caveat, right? This is one moment in time.
It's one moment. It's one
compared
data
year
point.
over year with different students in those grades from year to year.
Totally. And here's the thing. I'm going to throw you a big curveball, because we're going to go from achievement gap and universal screener analysis, which includes 3 through 8 and not 11. I'm going to include 11, and I'm going to cut at the 61st percentile, and all the numbers are going to change on you. So buckle up. Let's go into CAS.
That means they get better, right?
Yeah, they get worse. CAS prediction. So let's talk about predicting it. So now, remember we were rocking at 60%. 60% we're doing okay, we said, right? Well, then you take out you take out these middle grounders here, and you go, hey, if you cut this NWEA score at the 61st percentile, you end up with 37% of our students that are predicted to be proficient in math, and 44% that are predicted to be proficient in English language arts, and nothing is good or bad unless compared to something else. And so we go into like this comparison of like, well, how have we done in the past? So in the 2023, 2024, 3 through 8 and 11, our fall reading was 49, we dropped to 46, and we ended up in our CASP ELA at 59. You with me? I'm here to tell you that I know this 11th grade group from last year. They were like a killer overachiever group. They're our seniors this year, and I looked into the data, and they propped up some of this. So you replace that group with a more typically performing 11th grade group that we have this year, and you bring in another, probably the last of our two-tailed pandemic bubble, 3rd grade group, and this year you're at 46, which is where we left off last year, and you've dropped the 2 points. Now, last time we dropped 3 points, we dropped 2 points, and you're at 44. What happens in ELA? We predict it goes down. We predict it stays more or less flat. We recognize it on the dashboard, and again, if we're dashboard, we don't really care about the percent proficient. We care about distance from met, and we care about growth. It's a whole nother metric. Why do I tell you that? Well, because remember, I looked at the dashboard with you a couple months ago, and I said, look, we're at 18.9 points above standard in ELA. The cutoff to be in the high row, which we're in, is 10 points above standard. We were 18.9 points above standard. If we drop 8.9 or if we drop 9 points, we drop from the high row to the middle row. You go from green to yellow, right? So our goal is to maintain the English language arts. Might this equal maintain? It might. Might it be a shift of 10 points? I hope not. That's something we're targeting for sure. This one right here is math, where you talk about 38% of your students in fall slide to 37, so it's a 1 point drop and end up with 40 on CASP. And this year we start off lower than we did all of last year. We start off lower. The new group of 11th graders and a new group of 3rd graders, we start off lower. But look what happens, we grow 3 points.
That never happens.
It never happens.
Winter is always
We never have it. So, I mean, I'm looking for 5 points of growth in math, but I'm also looking to maintain in English language arts. I think our teachers are rolling up their sleeves and doing the work. I think the TOSAs, the IAs, the admin, the people who are putting the work together for the pull-out interventions, they're doing the work. I think it's probably going to... The kids are doing the work. Sally Hubbard's got AI doing the work. Yeah. We had all kinds of cool stuff going on. But can we predict? There's another NWA model that we pulled in the background and noodled on and kind of came up with a very similar predictor based on these scores. And we went, we're predicting based on the scores, flat. Because look, your 37 equals 40, just 37 equals 40, right? 46 equals 59. We think that 44 equals 58. So it's flat. But what we're not counting on yet is all that intervention we're pouring on.
You have another round.
Right, so you have all that Imagine Math. You have 2 full rounds of 60 kids and 72 kids in pull-out intervention. You have the teachers rolling up their sleeves doing FIABs right now. So you got a lot of work, I think. If you're going to pull it out, I think you get the bump there.
I mean, is there like a donut thing we can sponsor?
Because competition in donuts, man.
Donuts are, and it's the 11th core value.
But they've been really doing that with Imagine Math.
Yeah.
Oh, I know they have. That's why.
Yeah.
Very motivating.
But that's done. Yeah. Like it was a period of time where there was incentive for meeting your 60 minutes a week, and that has passed. Although there's a little one coming this next week to say, hey, you've continued the momentum in your classes. So
I was thinking of something like over spring break. Like, is there something we can
Do you remind me that you send that tomorrow morning?
Good idea.
Yeah.
I'll personally sponsor donuts or whatever the prize is.
Can you write that down? Hope Garlic. Donuts for everybody.
A certain Dr. Ike used to say, a donut a day.
A donut,
Everyone
yeah.
can afford a donut.
No,
a day.
it was $1 a day.
$1.
$5 for a donut.
See, so I was thinking, like, because over spring break, right? I mean, are they back a week and then CASP testing?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, right. So having people home and doing math over that week or reading might be, I don't know. I'm not an educator. I am just spitballing. I will stop.
Jenny Coyote's already chimed in. It says we could do a second round of donuts apparently for
I'm all
She
in
wrote
for,
down Hope's credit card number.
yeah,
right.
I will sponsor said donuts.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think I try to lay out, steps 1 through 4. We've arrived at some monitoring. Obviously, here's what we're continuing to do between now and the day of CASP, right? We talked a little bit about the intervention enrichment. We talked about we didn't talk about this piece. Actually, we are piloting an elective in 8th grade. Rochelle Lee's doing that. She's got a group doing some 8th grade intervention, the FIABs, and then obviously this big 4-week campaign to launch testing. And then we'll test on April 3rd through the 8th, I guess. Is that what it says? That's what it says.
At least it's not during law.
Thank you. It's in April, not April 3rd. Yeah, thank you. It's the grade levels. I think I just got a little tired.
So it is the week before WASC. I was thinking that'd be great. They wanted to go do focus groups right in the middle of CASP testing.
Oh my gosh,
It's
right.
like 3 weeks, April 28th week, and then the next week, and the 3rd week for science.
Yeah. Which we don't even have as a target.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the dashboard. So I'm going to continue to monitor outcomes. Remember we talked about NWA as the universal screener and CASP predictor. Any questions on that piece before I jump into English language arts, or English learner progress? So here's a kind of conversation regarding English learner progress and how it affects the dashboard. I don't have any quantitative data for you, but I do have some of the efforts that are been put in place this year. You remember that 2 years ago we were red in our English our LP, and so we created a designated ELD class at Westlake Charter High School. It's going incredibly well. We're seeing great results there in preparation for LPAC testing. We have an ELD 6-8 elective class being co-taught between Mrs. Ashby and Mrs. King. That's a great piece right there. Designated ELD pull-out groups, K-5. We have the LPAC FIAB practice in designated classes, which is kind of a cool piece being piloted right now. We're doing, we did professional development in the fall, these 6-part PDs, and we had 16 teachers elect to take the GLAD professional development, and 10 teachers elect to take the QTEL. Remember, GLAD, kindergarten through 5th grade, kindergarten through 5th grade is language acquisition modeling, and then QTEL is more of a 6-12 version of GLAD. And so we had 10 teachers opt into that training this fall as well. So some real work on that side. We're really predicting that these efforts will help grow our English language progress on our LP portion of the dashboard. Graduation rate, we are going to graduate some seniors. It's pretty exciting. This is what we're predicting. We're predicting 100% graduation rate, which is a wild thing to say out loud. I mean, I know that's what everybody thinks happens all the time. That's really not true anywhere, ever. 100% are unusual, and we're going to have 100%, we believe. All of the students are currently enrolled in or have completed their graduation rates. So every one of our seniors has either completed all of these courses, any courses they have not yet completed, they're currently enrolled in, meaning there's not a student sitting out there in senior year who's like, well, I can only take 4 classes, but I need 9, right? So we are looking at a 100% graduation rate. And then over here on the college and career indicator, we're also looking at 100% rate, because remember, this is a predictor of meeting A to G requirements, and you cannot graduate from our school without meeting A to G requirements, and completing at least 1 college level course, which all of our students will have done that, because that is also a requirement. The metric on this is a student is either prepared or approaching prepared, and we will expect they'll have 100% of our students, our graduates, prepared, which actually will be a really nice indicator for us, because the 2 comprehensive high schools in our authorizing district are doing great, but they're like at 56 and 71%. So we'll be at 100%. That'll be a really good indicator for us. Now, I don't know that, I don't not know. We will not be at 100% next year because I know of a couple of students who will be students with disabilities who will not be on a diploma track. So they will not have met A to G without an asterisk, and they may or may not have met the college course load. So it's great to start off with a couple of hundreds in these columns, but it'll change and evolve over years. And I think that these are targets that I think we would want to codify at some point. Yes, we are targeting graduation. We are targeting, right? Because it's certainly work we believe is important.
Well, we specifically mentioned the graduate profile
Yeah.
too in the goal. So
Yeah, true story. Yeah, great. That's a great point. And then step 4, respond to the data, right? So we talked about establishing the goal, laying out like what efforts we're making, then monitoring, outcomes, and then responding to the data because we've got work to do as soon as the data comes back. So June 2025, we'll be working on analyzing the data from the fall, winter, and then CASP in the spring, as well as LPAC data. So we'll know June-ish, typically late June. Yep, we know how we did. We got to start iterating, right? We'll be designing the launch of the first 5 and the launch of the fall in 25. Really, all that PD that I talked about, those 6-part PDs, the math series for the K5 or K8 math teachers, instructional design series for 6-12, all of that work, plus organizing our intervention teams. That's all the response to data that I would assume we would be doing once all the data starts to roll back in. Now, I know that the goal says for you to give me feedback. You've been doing so along the way. But I plant that seed to just say, I hope I haven't overharped it, but I think we as a board need to spend time at some point saying, what's the targets? What are we aiming at? Is it dashboard? Is it dashboard plus? Is it portions of the dashboard? Is there a minimum on the dashboard? The problem with that darn dashboard, right, is that nobody wants to be yellow. No one's going to say, yellow's good enough. We'll go with yellow.
We also don't want to say we're not going to focus on that and then you report on it and we're like.
Right. Yeah, right. Right. So, I don't have answers, but I would love to spend time, talking through it.
I don't want to get to charter renewal and that's my struggle with the dashboard. Is I don't get to charter renewal and have them be like, wait, what are you doing there? Because you're like this and this on that, and then you're not doing anything here.
If you get the charter renewal and they've taken away the opportunity to utilize verified data, then you're in you're in trouble. So verified data is currently able to be used by schools if they're not green on the dashboard, but they can use NWA to go, well, we're not green on that, but we're doing good on this, or here's our senior project. It really demonstrates our graduate profile. You can use verified data, but we think that's probably going away.
And then the other side of that, though, there is the growth factor, right?
Oh, yeah.
So for me, my natural inclination, though, is to focus on individual student growth and not so much my color on the dashboard. Though it goes together, but it doesn't.
And the dashboard now has that new growth metric that I showed you. The problem is that's not part of the high, medium, and low track for charter renewal.
So that's where when I'm left wondering is how best to meet for our ultimate charter document, right? Which is what we sort of have to, but do it in our way.
Sure.
I struggle.
And I told you we have the biggest staff we've ever had. We have the most people running around we've ever had. And we still are like, we could use 50 new people helping out with intervention. So I'm going to call on the parents. I'm going to need you to help me as a parent volunteerism. But, there is a budgetary constraint here, and you have to remember who you are. How many times has Josh celebrated esports? Well, esports ain't free. It's worth the investment because it makes us who we are, right? Specialties ain't free, but it's worth it because it is who we are. Are you going to start taking from the programs that you love and make you who you are to invest in intervention? And that's a conversation you need to have. Sally.
I'd like to see, we focused for so long on language arts and math, and we're increasing our focus on math, which I'm loving, and I'd like to see that expand to science skills as well. Not just because I'm a science teacher, but even in K-5 Landia, science skills were, like Hope mentioned, integrated with language arts skills. In the middle school, if we hone our science skills, that supports math and literacy. And I'd be curious to see where we could go as a school.
Yeah, I mean, I bring this up, Sally, because I'm like, hey, this is grayed out right here, science, but this thing is moving up to, oh, look, there's an open spot right there. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you are so right on because you're talking about skills.
Yes.
So you know that the K-3 phonics skills lead to reading, the reading leads to English language arts, and English language arts is on this dashboard. Well, what are the foundational K-3 science skills that lead to a robust understanding in grades, what do we test here, 5, 8, and 11, right? And that goes right up over there. So,
And the teachers haven't had a lot of training in
yeah,
science.
because that's probably why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And there's such a push for, on the college and career readiness side, STEM education. And how do you get to STEM without the S? You just have TEM education.
Well, and that's where I was gonna go with that is,
That'd be a humdinger.
That'd be a humdinger. Thanks, Josh.
I know I have a child that's majoring in classics and chemistry, right? And then, Steve with Nico doing data science, right? They're doing the sciences, but they're having to pull things out of English and social studies and biological studies. It's really interesting. And so taking science and putting Westlake on it, that's really intriguing, but you can only do that if you have the underlying training to know what to target.
Yeah, good point. Other reflections about the academic report or questions?
I have a question, and this is just the question of totally looking at it from outside eyes. When we're, at the yellow and the orange looking to move up, and we're providing intervention, how many in those categories just aren't the greatest test takers?
Yeah, it's the age-old question, yeah.
And does any of that intervention include just preparing them a little more to take the test, and would it get us 5 points?
Yeah, it's a great.
That's the goal.
Is
it a wash? Are there people above who maybe just nailed the test, and does it wash itself out? So that was just one of the thoughts that I had kind of looking at it, and that's just from a non-educator's eyes.
No, it's an age-old question for sure. You give me this test on this particular day, and I'm going to perform how I do today, but catch me on another day, and it may have been a 5-point swing, right? For sure. There's a couple factors there. One of them is test preparedness, and we have not put a lot of time into test preparedness because we don't want to focus on the test. And so this year we're doing a 4-week ramp up to it with a lot of skill building. Like, hey, and the FIABs, part of those they are a CASP test. They're a sample, so the kids will be exposed to that level of rigor, those tools on the computer. So we think that test prep may have something to do with it. There's also the other side of it, which is like, I have personally looked through test scores at a kid who is a ACE student who is a red, and had to walk over to said kid and be like, hey man, let's talk. You know me, I'm Dr. Ike. Like, I know your parents. You are killing me, brother. Like, you actually don't know, but you matter. And they're like, oh, I'll never. But kids have phoned it in. So it could go.
Well, and that's kind of why I was saying more in that middle track. I think once we take out the blue and the green and the red and the yellow, is there room more in that?
Right in that middle track for
just to try to introduce test preparedness.
Yeah.
Because not every student will need that.
Yeah.
And some others, and there's obviously students that need intervention.
Yeah.
On that
Kind of
note,
trying to play the game.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a game.
For lack of a better way to describe it.
well,
For sure.
I don't necessarily want to follow up the game with this comment, but is there a way to identify? I know we're doing it anyway, but students that may need time and a half or
Oh, yeah, I mean,
access
yeah.
to noise canceling headphones or a different testing location? Like,
Yeah, no,
I'm assuming we're doing all those
Yeah,
steps.
accommodations are obviously part of the sequence of events, and our student sports services team does a bang up job in that. Yeah, for sure, for sure. In fact, Ashley Patel talks a lot about preparing our students to utilize the tools that are available within the system. I mean, if you've never taken the CASP test before, there's some clicks and some buttons and some things that are built into the system that you should be trained to use to your benefit before taking the test. And so, yeah, for sure. Other academic report related ahas, questions, thoughts, or concerns? All right, thank you so much.
Do you want to see if anyone commented on that item before we leave it?
Yeah.
Of course, the system locked him out of everything, so just a sec.
So it was like, you're not using me, I'll just close
He's
down.
like, I'm done. Your day's over.
All right, seeing none.
You don't need 90 slides.
It's 92.
Was it actually 92? Well, it was very useful 92.
You owe us one. You said 93.
93.
Yeah, let me just.
He's gonna go make one right now.
Oh, it's 93 right there. Westlake Charter School is 93.
That's
My fault. That's I'm digging on the slide.
Well, that was quite the lawyer thing right there. Maybe a parent thing, catch you on the roll. Any future agenda items we want to bring up right now? I don't know of any.
I maybe have one. I need to check with the team on Monday, but perhaps carving out some time in the April board meeting to just do a quick discussion, bring everybody up to speed with what development's working on and some of the new things. Because our main goal is to, basically our year is gonna run July to June. So we would like to hopefully start rolling out some of this stuff this coming July, but would like to have the board on board. So would like to hopefully, assuming we get the approval of development on Monday, have something to present quickly in April, just to bring everybody up to speed.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'll also be bringing back a WASC kind of test prep. Right, what
I
else?
hate calling it test prep. I'm really sorry. I
Use that, yeah.
I'm a cheat sheet.
Well, I think my Cliff Notes is equal.
Yeah.
Trademarked.
So we'll bring back a WASC piece. We also have I don't know if it's not an agenda item, but we are trying to get a esports presentation on the docket here. Yeah.
Reflection. What worked well? What would have been better if, as always, no prize for going first, but it's much appreciated.
I'll go first then, since there's.
Oh, both. You're gonna take
Yep,
first
I'm
on
doing it
both.
all.
Wow, Josh
I'm
had a
doing
big
it all.
night.
Basis on dinner.
The finance committee, and the work they put in, I know how much effort goes into that, and I know it's not an easy decision that's taken lightly, so just wanted to thank you guys for your work on that, in conjunction with Steve, and I like where it's going because we were able to stay nimble, and that's one of the things we always focus on is staying nimble, and I think you guys proved it right there.
We went to Suzanne first for celebration, so Steve. if
That's
you
you,
wanna-
Steve.
I appreciate the academic update and seeing all the interventions and the needs assessments that are going on. I always find that fascinating what's going on, so I appreciate the update tonight.
Also with the academic update and just since you brought it up, I've just been thinking like, what should our goals be? What should our goals be? What
What are the targets? Yeah.
What exactly are we targeting? And I don't know why something about it really spoke to me, and now my brain won't stop. So
Yeah, I'm
thanks.
glad.
I won't be able to sleep
I love when your
tonight.
brain doesn't stop. 'Cause it churns out good things. Yeah, and you don't have to solve it tonight. But yeah, thanks for letting it churn.
Thank you all for bringing up hard things, bringing up things that are going on in the federal government right now, bringing up the 5-year anniversary of our COVID shutdown and the bubble of kids that's coming up that I'm just starting in 6th grade this year with and feeling the next several years. So thank you for the validation of saying those things out loud.
Kind of similar similar to what's been said. I'm amazed by the amount of work that went into academic report and the thoughts around that, and then the compensation piece. I mean, just both are a tremendous lift, and I'm just really appreciative, and I think we had some good conversations.
It's good. You playing along? Or no?
No, I'm too cold.
Yeah, you're too cold.
It is very
What
chilly
worked?
over here.
What worked well? What would have worked better?
I'm cold, I
If
can't.
what works well for me is the same thing that works well for me every time, and it is a highly engaged board. I love the sound of my voice. Oh my gosh, I love just talking and talking and talking. That's no secret. But if it's just me talking, it doesn't work. And so by high engage, I looked around during the comp conversation, and it seemed like the entire board had read a very detailed brief and understood it. And it is hard work. Steve did an incredible job. The finance team did an incredible job. But it was complex and really important work. And I looked around this room, and it seemed like everybody read the document. And that's a big deal, because this whole thing works better when we are engaged at a level of like, yep, I read the thing, I'm in. So like for me, that your engagement, your willingness to do the homework, and then the willingness to chime in on me while I'm reporting on academics and ask questions and offer thoughts, that to me is everything. So it's not a board meeting if the board isn't meeting, right? So thanks for being those people. That works for me.
I thought you were gonna say,
Unless you're bored? No, you can be bored. They are the board.
I was ready for you to say
Yeah.
the board is bored.
But you can't be cold and bored.
Yeah.
No, if you're cold and bored, you're asleep.
Oh, I
You know
like
what I
that.
mean? I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna add on to yours, because what worked well for me is that you're all here. Like, I did have
Yeah.
a slight quorum panic for this meeting, knowing that we needed 5 non-staff members tonight, and knowing how close we got. And I know your lives are all really busy, and everything's been very, very stressful lately. So thank you all for coming and being prepared and engaging, because we can't get the work done without you.
I appreciated the academic report, but also what you said is, I think a challenge that we have as charter schools is performing on the dashboard, but also attending to innovation. And what is really our goal is, we're charter schools because we get to innovate. And I think I'm looking forward to grappling with that as a board, is where do we put our efforts and how do we keep that going when we know we want to get renewed too?
Yeah, right. I mean, I find myself saying, when I talk about the mission, we demonstrate what's possible in school and community collaborating. I talk about like you don't need charter schools if we're not trying something different. So how do we get how do we define what we try different if we're always having to compare ourselves exactly to the same metrics that everybody else is? There's a real play there, man. There's a play there, because you can't always be yes and. Like, we'll do all the dashboard stuff, and we'll be the most innovative, cool. You're like, hey, Pete, you're gonna burn people out.
Well, and not to get too deep, but we seem to be in a period of time where different is harder, like maybe even purposely so, but where our whole point is to be different.
Yeah.
So
It's
we're
great.
stuck in this battle of who we are against maybe who people want us to be, and it's a struggle. Sally.
I know I've spoken a lot tonight, but I have one final thing, and you made me think of it. Branding being important, and John Ike is part of our Westlake brand. You should have seen him at the conference we went to this week, and the sound of his voice made people turn around and go, I know that guy. He's John Ike from Westlake Charter School.
You have me standing right there, and we were being super silly, and I was saying something, and so we turned around and was like, hey! That was funny.
Well, doesn't
Yes.
Scott Dosick still caw at you?
Yeah, he does still call
So, I
me.
mean,
Yes, my
yeah.
voice is distinctive. Yeah, thank you. You better too.
Well, yes, you are Westlake.
We are all
And
Westlake.
You are too, Sally, and so is everyone else here, so.
Next year, they're gonna say the same thing about you.
True story.
Well, maybe even next month when you present.
That's right.
With that, we will adjourn at 8:50.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, Paul.
Good night, Paul.
Whoop. Where is the YouTubes?
Good, I'll still be home in time to watch Dr. Odyssey tonight.
Dr. Odyssey question
It's
mark?
our sick couple